Welcome to Whisperer of Madness. If you're enjoying the story, consider liking the video and subscribing. It really helps grow the channel and this community. The searing pain and the absolute blindness in his eyes sent Chen Yuliang into a panic. He tilted his head slightly, straining to locate Master Yu by sound alone, to determine where he was and where the next attack might come from. But Master Yu's greatest strength had always been his footwork, and the howling gale he stirred up drowned out everything else. Chen Yuliang's ears were filled with nothing but the roar of wind, burying all other sound beneath it. Where is the secret classic of mountains and seas? In the darkness, struggling to defend himself with the black turtle art, Chen Yuliang finally heard Master Yu's cold voice. A spark of hope flared in his chest. He could use this to bargain. The thought slowed his hands significantly. He stepped backward on his own accord to open a distance, so as to facilitate a negotiation. That single moment of hesitation was all it took. A blade of wind sliced between his raised arms and struck his face. Two warm fingers drove into his eye sockets and sank deep. A strangled, gurgling sound escaped Chen Yuliang's throat as he staggered backward. Master Yu's voice reached his ears once more, flat and without emotion. "I'll find it myself." Chen Yuliang crashed heavily to the ground. The dark, bloodied hollows of his eyes stared emptily up at the rafters. Master Yu did not search the body immediately. He turned and walked toward the door. Inside the martial hall, which clearly had close ties to Chen Yuliang, the disciples had already scattered. A squad of patrol enforcers in black-fitted uniforms, starlight and candle flame embroidered at their cuffs, arrived swiftly at the scene, longswords in hand. Their leader was a young woman of about 20. Unlike her uniformed companions, she wore a pale green skirt, with only the starlight and candle flame insignia at her cuffs to mark her rank. Her face was clean and lovely, her eyes bright and lively. Her black hair was simply gathered up and bound with a green embroidered silk handkerchief. She was tall and graceful, and moved like a willow swaying in the breeze. At the sight of her, Master Yu's expression grew a shade more serious. He said in a low voice, "The conflict between the Four Waters Brotherhood and the small boat gang was registered with the magistrate's office last month." The young woman held a longsword in a gold and red sheath. She glanced at Chen Yuliang's body inside the room and assumed a deliberately mature attitude. Were any uninvolved parties harmed? Was there any martial violence committed in a public space? Master Yu shook his head slightly. "No." He paused, then added, "The same applies to the other party. It involved only people from the Zhen household and the small boat gang." The tall, graceful young woman said with a hint of disappointment, "If there is any searching to be done afterward, we will need to observe the entire process." "Of course, Heroine Zhang." Master Yu clasped his hands, then turned toward Chen Yuliang's corpse. The body, whether due to the man's cultivation method or some other hidden condition, had already begun to show faint signs of decay in the brief time it had taken to exchange those few words. Several flies and moths circled above it. As Master Yu approached, they scattered. Seeing this, Master Yu's brow furrowed slightly. In the blind spot between the alley wall and the luscious tree, after hearing his brothers, she probably won't. Bull smiled good-naturedly. "Songyin, you're the one in the family who's nicest to me. Isn't our little sister nice to you?" Ding Songyin changed the subject. He did not want to discuss killing any further. Bull seemed unable to find the right words for a moment. He lapsed into visible thought, and it was a while before he spoke. "She's a little afraid of me." "So am I, a little," Ding Songyin thought with a kind of helpless exasperation. Fear was the normal reaction. He glanced at the blotchy-nosed corpse behind the tree. Remembering that the matter of the secret classic truly could not be brought to the attention of the authorities, he drew a breath. "Bull, what are you planning to do with the body? I've been standing here far too long. Even if the watchtower sentries don't suspect anything illegal, they're going to think I have some kind of incontinence. What to do with it?" Bull looked at the corpse with its caved-in face and fell silent. Ding Songyin fell silent too. "So you hadn't thought about that at all. I assumed you were an experienced hand at this. Then again, while traveling out in the wilderness with nobody coming or going, you only had to wait for nightfall and toss the bodies into the forest, off a cliff, or into a river. I need to think of something. Someone could pass by at any moment." As his thoughts raced, Ding Songyin heard a gust of focused wind carrying Master Yu's voice. "Leave on your own. The Four Waters Brotherhood will handle the body." Ding Songyin exhaled with relief. It sounded like the Hallmaster Chen's situation had been resolved as well. As for the secret classic of mountains and seas, he did not care in the slightest whether Master Yu had found it or taken it. If the man did not bring it up, that was good news. If he did, that would be dangerous. Inside the Zhen Estate cold water pavilion, surrounded by water-driven fan wheels and huge basins of ice, Master Yu clasped his hands in a bow and offered the book in his hand to the old man seated in the high-backed chair above. Patriarch, it is indeed the copy of the secret classic of mountains and seas that went missing from the estate. All the hidden marks match. The old man wore a black robe embroidered with numerous characters symbolizing fortune and a melon skin cap. His broad left palm was holding two heavy iron balls which he spun with effortless ease. His beard had gone white. His eyes showed signs of bulging outward, and when his lids opened and closed, an uncanny light seemed to spill from them. His complexion was unusually ruddy. His ears had a layered, folded quality, as though each one had split in two. Patriarch Zhen Qianfen, took the indigo-covered book in his right hand, shook it open casually, and glanced at a couple of pages. I have no worries when things are left to you. The Bright Knight sect and the Yaman's people don't know this book exists, do they? Master Yu maintained his dead, somber expression. The book was hidden inside Chen Yuliang's clothes. Zheng Zhuxi was present at the time, but she is still young and has not yet formally been a part of the Jianghu. She was squeamish about examining the corpse too closely. I used the wind-seizing technique to retrieve and conceal it, then made an excuse about needing to handle matters on Ding Songyan's side and left quickly. Zhen Qianfen looked at the secret classic in his hand and chuckled. Lost 9 months ago, and now it comes back to us. What a coincidence. He leaned back into his chair and closed his eyes. The Ding family's second son truly doesn't remember where he got this secret classic. He has genuinely lost his memory. I've been observing him covertly these past 2 days and found that he can barely recall everyday matters, let alone anything this specific. Physician Xiao has confirmed the same, though he cannot determine the cause, Master Yu answered honestly. Zhen Qianfen sat in silence for a long while, as though asleep. Then he turned his head suddenly and looked at his son standing beside him. When did Qin Nuansheng enter the household? Zhen Quanwang, the legitimate son of the Zhen family, bowed slightly to answer. Nuansheng joined the household a little over 2 years ago. Father, we did an investigation at the time. The loss of the secret classic had nothing to do with her. Facing the father he had always feared, he mustered the courage to speak on Qin Nuansheng's behalf. Zhen Qianfen laughed once, his tone perfectly certain. Of course it had nothing to do with her. A little over 2 years ago. That's fine, then. He opened his eyes fully, that uncanny light visible in them, and turned his questions to Master Yu. How long has the Ding family been in Dingjiang Prefecture? What kind of people are they? Only a little over 7 months, Master Yu recalled and answered. It should have nothing to do with the loss of the secret classic. His deepest impression of the Ding family was that the youngest daughter, not yet fully grown, was already a beauty beyond comparison. He had been about to say so directly, but reconsidered. Patriarch Zhen and the various scions of the household were never restrained when it came to women. Ordinarily, Qin Nuansheng would not even allow Ding Qingyan into the estate. When she missed her sister, she went to Chengyu Lane to visit in person. It was better not to let Patriarch Zhen and the others know too much. The girl from the Ding family was only 14 or 15. Some things were just not right. And with the Zhen household's name behind her, no one in Chengyu Lane dared bully Ding Qingyan. Choosing his words carefully, Master Yu began with Ding Shengyi, describing the middle-aged scholar in detail along with Liu Yuzhao, Bull, and Ding Songyan. At the end he added, there is also a young daughter, not yet of age, notably pretty. Only notably pretty. Zhen Qianfen listened with full attention, the 2 iron balls turning steadily in his palm. After a long pause, he gave a slight nod. It doesn't seem like it. Without explanation, Patriarch Zhen issued his instructions to Master Yu. The small boat gang's rapid rise these past few years has not been entirely normal. Someone may be backing them. If it's a major sect, that's manageable. This is Ning province, which belongs to the self-revering sect and the Yi clan. We have connections to both. Once any outsider is exposed, they'll withdraw on their own. What I fear is that the small boat gang has gotten involved with one of the 21 heretical ways. Those heretics don't follow Jianghu rules. There's nothing they won't do. When you and the Bright Night sect and the Yaman's people search Chen Yuliang's hall altar, pay close attention to any sign of such involvement. Don't let your guard down. Heh, it's easy to accomplish things by colluding with heretics and just as easy to be uprooted by the court. Yes, Patriarch. Master Yu clasped his hands in reply. After spending 8 coins on a bowl of noodles with bits of pork and a few vegetables, Ding Songyan returned to Chengyu Lane feeling much lighter now that the immediate crisis had passed. He pushed at the courtyard door. It did not budge. Knock, 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 he knocked. Who is it? Ding Qingyan's voice came from inside. Your second brother. Ding Songyan smiled. Only then did Qingyan lift the door latch. She asked, happy and puzzled at once, back so early. Her hands were wet, and there was a wooden basin beside the water jar. She had obviously been washing clothes. The problem is more or less resolved. Ding Songyan pulled the door shut behind him and gave his sister a rough account of what had happened. He did not specify the secret classic of mountains and seas, referring to it only as something worth a great deal of money. Nor did he mention that Bull had killed another man. Qingyan paid no attention to those details. Her eyes lit up with sudden, fierce delight. Second brother, we don't have to live in fear anymore. She began pacing in circles, murmuring excitedly to herself. We need to celebrate. We need to celebrate. When father gets off duty, I'll have him go to Peony House and buy a crispy, fragrant duck and also. Mid-murmur, she swallowed. Ding Songyan watched with a smile. When his sister had calmed down, he asked, do we have paper and brush at home? He intended to sketch out tomorrow's installment of The Legend of the White Snake. He could not afford to leave out as many details as today, when Zioking had barely gotten any scenes at all. The Wushu cavalry lieutenant would be unreachable if he returned to barracks. The girl in the white dress was Ding Songyan's most valuable personal connection at the moment, and they had gotten off to a good start. He had to maintain it. Isn't there some in your trunk? Qingyan pointed at the west wing. Right, my original occupation was storyteller. Ding Songyan nodded, went back to his room, and opened the small wooden chest beside his bed. The chest held paper, brushes, an inkstone, ink sticks, and several books. Ding Songyan flipped through them casually. They were the scripts a storyteller would keep. Some purchased from the Storytellers Guild, others apparently copied out by the original Ding Songyan himself. The handwriting was clearly different between the two types, and the latter were far more crudely bound. Primarily historical material. If I'd known, I wouldn't have bothered listening to the old tales at the market. These would have been enough. Wasted all that copper, he muttered as he inspected his collection. After a while, Ding Songyan picked up an unbound, coverless manuscript from near the bottom of the chest. His eyes scanned across it and suddenly caught on a single line. Fei, the two-tailed snake, the result of consuming it. Insects and parasites are subdued, the spirit is fortified, 100 ailments find no purchase. W.H. Ding Songyan's expression froze. The secret classic of mountains and seas. In that moment, Ding Songyan felt he had perfectly reenacted that old joke. With what I've been through, what have I seen? This. I really haven't seen this. Not long ago, he had been caught up in a dangerous storm over the secret classic of mountains and seas, relieved that the thing had been sold off and that he had forgotten everything, sparing himself endless trouble. And now, turning around, he had found a copy sitting in his own home. Was this thing as common as rotten cabbage leaves at the market, lying around for anyone to pick up? No, easier than that. You didn't even have to fight anyone for it. Wait, wasn't the original Ding Songyan supposed to be timid? How had he dared to secretly copy one and hide it at home? Comparing the handwriting and annotations to some of the storytelling scripts, it's clearly the original Ding Songyan's work. At this thought, Ding Songyan's eyes narrowed. A reasonable but unpleasant guess took shape in his mind. If I were the original Ding Songyan, I would certainly have come back to retrieve this copied secret classic before leaving Dingjiang Prefecture. Otherwise, what was the point of copying it? Moreover, leaving it at home would endanger his family. As his disappearance stretched on, his parents, brother, and sister would inevitably sort through his belongings. If they did not understand the importance and danger of the secret classic, if they failed to keep it secret, the annihilation of the entire family would be imminent. The original Ding Songyan had gone to the ruined temple outside the city not to flee, but for another purpose entirely. He had been planning to finish some piece of business, return home to retrieve the copied secret classic, leave a few words for his family, and only then depart Dingjiang Prefecture. That made far more sense. It was more cautious, and it would have avoided the risk of family members searching for him everywhere afterward. Wait, there was another question he had never answered. Where had the original Ding Songyan gotten the secret classic in the first place? The fact that he had gone to the ruined temple outside the city before coming home, that he had chosen that over returning to his family first. Was that connected to where the secret classic came from? Had the true provider of the secret classic killed Ding Songyan and taken the money? Is there no end to this? Ding Songyan could not help a bitter laugh at himself. You've really done me in. If you were going to die, fine. But did you have to leave behind this mountain of problems for me? After the Hallmaster Chen affair, the strategy of dangling the bait and seeing what surfaced would probably not work a second time. Ding Songyan could only dare to mention to cousin Nguyen Sheng or Master Yu that the true origin of the secret classic has not been determined, and whoever tried to murder me may be someone else entirely. He absolutely could not reveal that there was a copied version hidden at home. All he could do now was pray that the Zhen household, having seemingly put the matter to rest, had in fact already considered that a provider lurked behind the scenes and was quietly continuing to monitor and investigate. Or that the provider had taken the silver and long since fled. Or that, having lain low for days and deduced the truth from Chen Yuliang's death, and having gathered intelligence about Ding Songyan's total memory loss, the provider had decided to let the matter lie and never surface again. With things having already come this far, I might as well see what this wretched book actually says. Ding Songyan steeled himself, gathered his focus, and began reading the secret classic of mountains and seas in his hands, its cover nothing but plain white paper. Before the passage on the Fei, there were some physical descriptions. In appearance it resembles a quail, with a yellow body and a red beak. According to what his sister had said, would practicing a Fei-related cultivation method eventually sprout wings and grant flight. Ding Songyan kept one ear on the sounds of King Yin washing clothes as he idly turned the pages. Celestial Theurch, the central yellow emperor, first of the 5 Theurchs, unites with the Great Way, commands yin and yang, governs all things, rules heaven and earth, ordains the fate of living beings. This powerful at the highest level, this doesn't look like anything martial arts could achieve. This is clearly the immortal path. A pity the connection between heaven and earth was severed so long ago. No entry about consuming it. The Celestial Theurch's legacy must be a cultivation method. I wonder which sect inherited it. One of the sacred grounds. Ding Songyan read with a tumult of emotions. Northern Emperor Zhuangsu, virtue of water, lord of winter, from whom the stars emerge, wielding the north to spread calamity, establishing prohibitions and setting law. Zhilong, the torch dragon, the result of consuming it. Chaos parts the underworld is lit, day and night bend to your command, the 4 seasons turn at your will, wind and rain answer your call. Hold on, there's a consuming it entry. Someone actually consumed Zhilong's divine remains. Where is the sect they founded, the art they created? Ding Songyan was equal parts astonished and envious. Xiangliu, the 9-headed serpent, the result of consuming it. The earth corrodes, mountains are swallowed whole, poison endures across 100 generations, 9 heads each moving to their own design. How do the Earth Mother, virtue of earth, mother of the land, dwelling at the center bearing all things, nurturing and transforming the multitude of lives, sovereign of the netherworld. Queen Mother of the West, administers heaven's plagues, commands the 5 destructions, communes with the netherworld, severs untimely death, gestates fortune and begets gold. Taudi the glutton, the result of consuming it. Evil is warded and disaster averted, heaven is devoured and earth swallowed, all things dissolve, greed knows no satiation, desire knows no end. Great Yi, vanquishes evil, shoots down 9 suns, succors the 100 hardships, the pinnacle of man. Liju the keen-eyed, the result of consuming it. The great sun bends to your command, all shadow is purged, the tip of an autumn hair is perceived, sight reaches beyond thousands of miles. Fengwang the phoenix, the result of consuming it. The 100 birds answer your call, you bear the 5 virtues, the world knows peace, rebirth comes through fire, all colors under heaven gather unto you. Shengyu, the triumphant pheasant, the result of consuming it. The 100 fish are subdued, the phoenix dance is mimicked, water floods an entire kingdom. Shechuo, the arbiter, the result of consuming it. Rectitude bends to your command, merit and fault are judged, the 3 realms are distinguished and possess radiance. Ziegu the rat-tailed duck, the result of consuming it. Climbing and clinging come with ease, the 5 plagues travel with you, wherever you dwell there is pestilence. Progenitor Yu, the primal king of the Yu, the result of consuming it. The hearts of men turn treacherous, shadow and darkness bend to your command, sand is harbored to shoot at men, the shadow is harmed and the body follows. Yu, the 3-legged turtle, the result of consuming it. Stealth becomes second nature and deathly sand flies from your lips. After scanning through a dozen or more key entries, Ding Songyan noticed a pattern in the descriptions. Some have 5 clauses, some 4, some 3, some only 2. Almost everything called an emperor has 5 clauses. The next tier of divine beasts has 4. The ones I have barely heard of have only 3 or 2. A hierarchy from strong to weak. Yes, that has to be it. Bright night candle flame, starlight candle flame illuminates the long night, penetrates the deepest dark. 4 clauses, not bad, worthy of being my target sect, though their cultivation method is apparently incomplete. I used to read the classic of mountains and seas without much care, but I remember there being a 9-tailed fox. Let me find it. Here, the Kinkyu fox, also known as the celestial fox, the 9-tailed fox, the Tushan clan. The result of consuming it. Becomes immune to goo poison, assumes 10,000 forms, toys with all living things, beguiles the world. I wonder which sect that belongs to. I wonder if consuming 2 different divine beasts would cause a conflict. Ding Songyan flipped excitedly back and forth, daydreaming about what it would be like if he could obtain the corresponding legacy or consume the relevant divine creature. In the middle of these wandering thoughts, he stopped short. For someone in my current position, none of this matters at all. Divine beasts vanished long ago. Without extraordinary fortune, encountering one would be nearly impossible. And even if he did, there was the very serious question of whether he could actually defeat it. Who would eat whom was far from certain. As for the top sects with corresponding legacies, those were not places he could simply come under their tutelage. Even if he memorized the entire secret classic backwards and forwards, it would change nothing about his present circumstances or future prospects. Not only was it meaningless, it would actually bring enormous risk. The secret classic of mountains and seas is most useful to experts who have real strength but don't belong to a major sect. First, it lets them identify divine creatures, especially fruits and trees. Some grant perfect memory when eaten. Some make the body impervious to blades. Some aid fertility, some cause barrenness, some are simply elixirs of immortality. Second, through the descriptions of properties, one can learn a target's strengths and weaknesses in advance and prepare accordingly. For instance, anyone who practices goo insect arts should absolutely avoid a head-on confrontation with practitioners of the Fei or 9-tailed fox lineages. Stay as far away as possible. Similarly, those who wield plague and disaster arts should never provoke a Fei inheritor, and Fei inheritors should not be parading themselves before a Fenghuang lineage. 100 birds answer your call is no idle phrase. Of course, the prerequisite is knowing which sect descends from which celestial theurch, god, or divine beast, or being able to judge from the characteristics of their martial art. From such an expert's perspective, the secret classic is priceless. Even at enormous risk, they would try to obtain it. No wonder Chen Yuliang was willing to pay so much. As Ding Songyan analyzed the value of the secret classic, the more he thought, the more he felt like a beggar sitting on a mountain of gold begging for coins, walking out empty-handed despite coming from a treasure vault. He drew a deep breath, let it out slowly, and a new set of ideas surfaced in his mind. I should just burn it, eliminate the danger at the root, prevent anyone from ever finding it. It's a pity I'm not a disciple of a major sect. If I were, I could possess the secret classic openly. Then again, disciples of major sects already have access to their own copies. Each keeps a private collection internally, though many are incomplete. Incomplete! Ding Songyan's eyes lit up. Trade the secret classic for a chance to join a sect. And once I became a member, I could read the secret classic openly and legitimately. The sect would need to have an incomplete copy of the secret classic, but they cannot have none at all. Having none would mean they lack depth and strength, and might simply kill me to bury the secret. Furthermore, I should look for one whose attribute descriptions tended toward the luminous and upright. Since cultivation at the highest levels partially transforms the body, the mind and spirit are likely affected as well. Descriptions involving radiance and justice would suggest a sect that is at least somewhat righteous, which would be safer and more advantageous for me. The Shechuo lineage would be ideal, Possesses radiance and rectitude bends to your command. But I have no idea which sect it corresponds to or even which nation it's in. The Bright Night sect is also acceptable. Starlight and candle flame, illuminating the long night, penetrating the deepest dark. Surely a sect like that couldn't be too wicked, and it was local. No dangerous journey required. First, find a way to determine whether the Bright Night sect has a copy of the secret classic and whether it's complete. Then decide. If he could join the Bright Night sect, he would no longer need to fear the secret classic's true provider. Having found a direction and thought it through, Ding Songyan felt as though his entire being had cleared. The sky seemed higher, the world broader, the sunlight brighter. Hearing King Yin's footsteps suddenly approaching, entering the main room, he quickly set down the secret classic, buried it among the stack of books, and picked up one of the original's storytelling scripts. "Second brother, what are you reading?" King Yin flicked water from her hands and asked casually. "Preparing to return to my old trade." Ding Songyan deflected his sister's question while pretending to flip to a particular page. The page was sparsely written. Its opening line read, "Chi did not succeed to the throne of Thirch. He became merely the human sovereign." The throne of Thirch refers to the position of celestial Thirch, and the human sovereign is the emperor of the mortal world. Ding Songyan's interest in the book in his hands surged. King Yin heard his answer and her expression cleared with understanding. "There's no need to rush, is there? Rest a few more days before worrying about that. Reading is also a form of rest." Ding Songyan always had a reply. King Yin did not press further. She went behind the screen and came back with books, paper, brushes, inkstone, and ink. "I'm going to practice my calligraphy." Her tone was light as she headed for the main room. Ding Songyan waved her off and turned his full attention to the storytelling script. The script was written in sparse summary. Of the ancient era, it mentioned only that Zhuangsu succeeded to the throne of Thirch and commanded Chang and Li to sever the connection between heaven and earth. After that, the celestial Thirch continued to walk among men and serve concurrently as human sovereign, in succession. Tang Yao, Yu Shun, Xia Yu. When Xia Huqi became human sovereign, there were no further accounts of a celestial Thirch appearing in the world. According to the secret classics annotations, Emperor Zhuangsu is the Northern Emperor, the Black Emperor of the North. He's one of the 5 directional emperors, certainly, but by no means the highest. So why do all these scripts list him as the celestial Thirch between the Yellow Emperor and Tang Yao? For people today who lack any lineage, ancient matters are genuinely difficult to verify. But surely something as momentous as who led the severing of heaven and earth couldn't be wrong. And every account agrees. If the one who led the severing wasn't the celestial Thirch, then who was? Ding Songyan quickly flipped through several other books. He mulled it over for a long time, then ventured an uncertain guess. The secret classic is supposedly copied from the emperor-annotated classic of mountains and seas, and all the major sects take it extremely seriously. It's unlikely to be wrong on a point like this. Could it be that celestial Thirch isn't a lineage but a position, that anyone who unites with the Great Way can become the celestial Thirch? Or perhaps the lineage and the position are separable. Even with the lineage, without reaching the corresponding realm, one cannot become celestial Thirch. In that case, whichever of the black, green, flame, or white emperors has united with the Great Way would serve in the role temporarily, yielding only when someone of the proper lineage reaches that level. And after the severing, the celestial Thirch still ruled the mortal world, only vanishing when Qi founded the Xia dynasty. What reason could be hidden behind that? Ding Songyan could not puzzle it out and did not dwell on it further. What did the secrets of the mythological age have to do with an ordinary storyteller? No point wasting time on it. He read on. The Xia dynasty endured 1,000 years before declining. The Yaoqiang dynasty replaced the Xia dynasty and held the nation for 600. According to this storytelling script, the Xia dynasty had lasted a full 1,000 years, far longer than the Xia dynasty Ding Songyan remembered from his previous life. That was the first difference. What replaced the Xia dynasty was not the dark bird that gave birth to the Shang dynasty, but a tribe called Yaoqiang. Its reign lasted over 600 years, though the final 200 saw local lords rising on all sides. Ding Songyan mentally mapped that period onto ancient China's spring and autumn era for convenience. After the fall of the Yaoqiang dynasty, rival powers vied for supremacy for just over 400 years. There was an age of competing philosophies. There was a sage surnamed Zhu who, in his youth, established military reforms through a coup. In middle age, propagated Confucian rites, and in old age, founded the Taoist teaching and expounded on virtue. The state that ended the era of warring powers was the Ying nation, which after unifying the realm and subduing the 100 tribes adopted Qin as its dynastic name. Its ruler proclaimed himself the first emperor. The Qin dynasty endured a little over 200 years before giving way to the Han dynasty. The Han dynasty likewise lasted 800 years and was likewise followed by the Three Kingdoms. After that came the Wei dynasty, not the Jin dynasty. The Wei dynasty lasted under 300 years before the realm descended into chaos, and the founding ancestor of the present dynasty rose from the position of Marquis of Zhao to unify all under heaven. The Qin dynasty excelled in rhapsody. The Han dynasty was strongest in poetry. The Wei dynasty flourished in the lyric. W.H. Ding Songyan felt his mind beginning to fracture. Every piece of history was half familiar. So much of it he recognized, yet assembled in strange new configurations. It left him feeling like a man who had dreamed he was a butterfly, only to wake and wonder whether he was now a butterfly dreaming it was a man. He forced his emotions level and began searching coolly for useful information and patterns. Several dynasties are missing, a few new ones have appeared, but the dynasties I recognize, Xia, Qin, Han, Wei, their sequence is correct. Rhapsody, poetry, lyric. The chronological order in which each flourished is also correct, just not matched to the dynasties I remember. If I had to describe it in one word, Ding Songyan's brow furrowed slightly. Displacement. A displaced timeline. Having finished the script and gained a basic understanding of this world's history, he gathered his writing materials, left the West Wing, and sat down across from Qingyan. He spread out paper and fumbled with the ink stick, trying clumsily to grind ink. Qingyan, who had been focused on her calligraphy, glanced up and pushed her own ink stone toward the middle of the table. Use mine for now. All right. Ding Songyan accepted without argument. He had only practiced brush calligraphy for 2 or 3 years as a child. His posture was passable, but once brush met paper the rustiness was plain, and the characters that emerged were as ugly as they could possibly be. Most critically, he could only write simplified characters, and even among those, quite a few had slipped from memory. He planned to leave blanks and ask Qingyan about them all at the end. Second brother, what kind of characters are those? Qingyan craned her pale, graceful neck to peer at the writing across the table. Ding Songyan answered with perfect composure. I've lost most of my memories, remember? I've forgotten how to write many characters properly. I can only manage simplified versions. Some I'll need to ask you about. This was why choosing honesty from the start had been the right decision. No need to rack his brains for excuses afterward. A casual deflection handled most problems. You can barely write anymore. Qingyan set down her brush and came around to stand behind him, studying the paper for a moment. A note of heartache crept into her murmur. Some of these simplified forms have been used by scholars in the past, so they're recognizable. Second brother, what are you writing? I had a flash of inspiration last night. I want to write a story about a Yao falling in love with a human. Ding Songyan thought for a moment. Once I finish the whole thing, you can copy it out neatly for me. I'll take it to the Storytellers Guild and see what price it fetches. I'll give you a share, help you save up some private funds. Qingyan's eyes lit up instantly. Yes, I'd love that. The mention of money reminded her of something. Second brother, did you buy the gift for Xingheng for me? Ding Songyan went quiet. I forgot. It's fine, it's fine. I'll look for something tonight when I go out with father or mother to buy food. Or tomorrow works too. Qingyan waved it off with a bright smile and returned to her seat to continue practicing. She wrote in a beautiful, delicate style. Ding Songyan bent his head and immersed himself in the creation of the legend of the white snake. This section needed to develop from the story point he remembered. Suxian and Lady Bai opening a medicine shop, all the way to the Dragon Boat Festival scene, where Realgar wine forces the white snake to reveal her true form, frightening Suxian to death. What happened in between, he had long since forgotten. He could only invent. His approach was to build from the collision between the two snake Yao's supernatural nature and ordinary human society, highlighting what made the story unique. First, Lady Bai uses magic to create minor illnesses, boosting the shop's business. But she is moved and gradually influenced by Suxian's genuine concern for the sick, for his neighbors, and for the poor. She begins to develop a human heart. Then, Zioking punishes a lecherous young man, setting off a chain of events that leads this naive snake Yao to gradually understand what love is, to understand the bond between her elder sister and Su Xian. Finally, the two Yao use their supernatural abilities to help Su Xian's relatives, his neighbors, the weak and suffering, to solve their problems and win them justice. This section was primarily meant to be satisfying, with character growth and transformation woven in. Ding Songyan wrote with great enjoyment, nearly adding several more episodes, but he reined himself in with reason. He also cut most of the domestic details and magistrate court scenes involving Su Xian's relatives, because the girl in the white dress was not from Dingjiang Prefecture and would not be staying long. Under these circumstances, a story too short would not serve the goal of building a connection and accumulating goodwill. But a story too long risked the best parts not being heard before she left, failing to leave the deepest possible impression. By the time he finished, the sun was leaning west. Ding Songyan transferred the brush to his left hand and shook out his right wrist. Even writing a rough outline took this long. He reviewed the pages laid out to dry while pondering whether to write down the song by Suzhen at the foot of Qingcheng Mountain. He thought the girl in the white dress was young enough to be receptive to novel things, unlikely to reject such an unusual style of song. And the more unusual something was, the deeper an impression it would leave. The more she would remember a man called Ding Songyan. That was one reason. The other was that Ding Songyan felt the song, introduced at certain moments in the story, would be the finishing touch that elevated the whole. For example, when Lady Bai's emotions were at their most intense, or her reflections at their deepest. Fortunately, the lyrics are simple, and it was covered by several singers over the years. I heard it often enough. Ding Songyan quickly finished writing out the lyrics. For the very few portions where his memory was unclear, he tried filling in the gaps himself. Brother, Su Xian dies just like that? While the ink dried and she helped gather and fold the pages, Qingyan read through what amounted to a detailed outline. She was clearly drawn in. Ding Songyan gave a terse acknowledgement. Yes. Then what happens? What comes next? Qingyan's eyes went wide. Next. Ding Songyan glanced at his sister. There is no next. Qingyan went blank for a moment, then realized her brother was teasing her and began to whine. Only then did Ding Songyan relent. The next episode is Lady Bai stealing an immortal herb to save Su Xian. If his primary audience responded well, he might even add an episode where Lady Bai storms the underworld and snatches Su Xian's soul back from Meng Po, the goddess of oblivion. Immortal herb? Oh, an elixir of immortality. Qingyan's expression eased with relief. Right, in this world's folk customs, elixir of immortality would be more readily understood than immortal herb. The thought had barely formed when the half-closed door was pushed open. Liu Yuzhou walked in, wearing her black gauze veil. Mother, second brother's problem has been resolved. Qingyan, still retaining a child's impulses, skipped forward to meet her. Is that so? Liu Yuzhou removed her veil and turned her gaze toward Ding Songyan. Ding Songyan repeated roughly what he had told his sister, omitting the secret classic and its true provider. Liu Yuzhou's expression gradually relaxed. Though subtle, a trace of genuine gladness showed through. She gave a terse acknowledgement and said, If you have time tomorrow, go to the Zhen estate. Nguyen Sheng helped enormously, and so did Master Yu. You should thank them in person. Our family must not lack courtesy. Once Ding Songyan agreed, Qingyan was already tugging at Liu Yuzhou's sleeve, pleading. Mother, can we celebrate tonight? Liu Yuzhou gave a slight nod. Then I'll go to the street and buy some food. What would you like? Anything is fine with me. Ding Songyan did not yet know the local options well enough and only added, as long as there's meat. The crispy, fragrant duck from Peony House, Qingyan blurted out. Mother, let me come with you. I can look for Zhengheng's gift on the way. Liu Yuzhou did not object. Mother-daughter duo put on their veils, took up a food box, and left. By evening, the Ding family's square table was laden with dishes. There was crispy, fragrant duck, white-cut chicken glistening with fat, braised lamb in red sauce, steamed eggplant, dressed greens, a stack of baked flatbreads, a bucket of rice, and a bucket of chilled sweet mung bean soup to drink. Shall we have a little alcohol today? Ding Shengyi turned his gaze toward his wife. Liu Yuzhou nodded. Ding Shengyi's face lit up at once. He produced a small jar of alcohol and turned to Ding Songyan. Rose dew from the magistrate's office at New Year. Would you two like a bowl? You two meant Ding Songyan and Bull, Before he could finish, Liu Yuzhou looked at him quietly and he fell silent at once. "Give me a bowl." Liu Yuzhou withdrew her gaze. Of course, of course." Ding Shengyi laughed, broke the seal, and poured a bowl for himself and one for his wife. Bull's throat bobbed at the drifting scent of alcohol, but he did not dare ask. Once Ding Songyan had poured chilled sweet mung bean soup for his brother, his sister, and himself, Ding Shengyi raised his wine bowl, looked around the table, and spoke in high spirits. "May our family's misfortunes end and good fortune follow." Ding Songyan, Liu Yuzhou, and the others lifted their bowls. Smiles ranging from radiant to faint touched their faces as they brought them together. Amid the crisp sound of bowls meeting, their voices rose in chorus. "Misfortune passes, and good fortune follows." The following morning, Ding Songyan and Su Chang'an left Chengyu Lane together, heading toward Dangking Temple. As they crossed a stone bridge, Su Chang'an stopped abruptly and clasped his hands toward Ding Songyan. "Brother Ding, I'll be making a move first." Beneath the shifting shade of a scholar tree, Ding Songyan asked, puzzled, "Where to?" "You forgot." Su Chang'an looked surprised. He glanced furtively left and right, then lowered his voice. "To my masters. I'm tested every 5 days." "Then why did you come to me in the first place? Just to walk together for less time than it takes to drink a cup of tea? Actually, you weren't coming to see me at all. You wanted an excuse to catch a glimpse of King Yin." Ding Songyan scoffed inwardly. He watched Su Chang'an take a turn along the road beside the bridge and disappear into a nearby lane, then continued on his way, carrying a bamboo basket loaded with a teapot, a folding fan, and other items, along with a folding stool and collapsible table. These were the tools of his trade. His original tools had gone missing 2 days ago. He could only piece together what he found at home, and was still short of a few things. By the time Ding Songyan reached Dangking Temple with its yellow walls and brown tiles, the place was already bustling. A cacophony of hawkers, cries filled his ears. "Pear strips for sale! Pear strips for sale!" Songyang persimmons, beyond compare, moist and sweet to clear the air. Whooping dates, the finest grown, chew them well to soothe your own. If you're a lass who weeps alone or a lad without a home, buy a bite and love you'll find, 2 by 2 before you've. Bamboo sieves woven tight without a gap. Iron-hooked carrying poles, made in Lufeng. Before Ding Songyan even reached the empty ground of his, he spotted his benefactor from a distance. The girl had changed her outfit today. A single jade pin gathered her black hair in an effortless twist. She wore a light purple two-pleated skirt beneath a dark purple front-buttoning jacket, embroidered with flowers and grasses arranged in vertical lines that gave her a delicate, fragile quality. Compared to yesterday, it was an entirely different kind of elegance. "Ding Songyan!" She raised her right hand and waved, her upturned eyes curving into crescent moons as she smiled, drawing the gaze of every man, woman, and child passing by. She came early to wait, a good sign. Means yesterday's performance wasn't bad. Ding Songyan relaxed slightly and walked toward her under the envious stares of those around him. The girl and her maidservant had come prepared as well, bringing 2 bamboo-framed embroidered stools and claiming the front row without hesitation. Ding Songyan set up his small table beneath the dense tree shade, arranged his teapot, and sat down. He picked up his folding fan, snapped it open, and without waiting for more of an audience to gather, got right to it. Continuing where we left off. With the detailed outline available, his delivery was smoother and more assured this time, filled with added detail. During his rest breaks, he did not ask for tips, only drank water to moisten his throat. The crowd of listeners grew steadily, drawn by a story unlike any romance or heroic saga currently in circulation. The girl in the purple jacket rested her chin on one hand, listening with absolute focus, her expression shifting with the plot. When Lady Bai used magic to create minor illnesses and boost the shop's business, her delicate brows drew together in a slight frown. When Su Xian's actions moved Lady Bai and awoke a human heart within her, the girl pressed her palms together with satisfaction. When Lady Bai and Zioking used their Yao abilities to punish the wicked, aid the poor, and protect the weak, her right arm twitched, as though she wanted to leap into the story and do it herself. When Fahai appeared again and manipulated Su Xian into testing Lady Bai with Realgar wine, the girl, her maidservant, and the rest of the audience wore furious and anxious expressions. Ding Songyan did not waver. He let Su Xian struggle inwardly before finally handing the cup of Realgar wine to Lady Bai. Lady Bai, blinded by love, her spiritual senses clouded by Fahai's concealment of the heavenly signs, did not notice anything wrong with the wine. Only after drinking did she realize. She rushed into the bedchamber, trying to seal herself away, but it was too late. Su Xian followed her in, half out of concern and half to see the truth for himself. He watched her reveal her true form, and there and then died of fright. When the medicinal effects passed and Lady Bai regained her senses, she looked at Su Xian's lifeless body. Grief overwhelmed her as despair filled her. There was the pain of betrayal, and there was the sorrow of love severed by death. At that moment, Ding Songyan snapped his fan shut and tapped it against his palm. As the saying goes, King Cheng Mountain, Bai Suzhen, 1,000 years she trained within. Through much toil she found the way, born anew to walk with. The song spoke of single-minded devotion to the way with nothing else to tell, of taking refuge in the three treasures to seek a golden body. Set against Bai Suzhen's present anguish, the contrast between that serene aspiration and her current devastation made the emotions stretch further, made the hollowness and despair more real. The sharp-chinned girl and everyone around her listened in a trance, fully immersed in the mood Ding Songyan was crafting. None of them found the melody or style strange in the least. What they felt was something intricate and hard to name. Not quite tears, but a dull ache in the chest, a sense of something beautiful slipping away. Ding Songyan observed their reactions with deep satisfaction. His one regret was that this song truly needed a woman's voice to achieve its full effect, and it had to be sung with cold clarity and ethereal detachment. After finishing Bai Suzhen at the foot of King Cheng Mountain, Ding Songyan set down his fan, stood, and cupped his hands to the crowd. Dear listeners, if you wish to know what happens next, come back for the next installment. Yesterday I asked for nothing. Today I humbly request enough for a meal. The girl immediately tossed a silver ingot into Ding Songyan's bamboo basket. Ding Songyan judged the weight, roughly 1 tael. Though his purpose in telling the legend of the white snake was not profit, having silver land in his lap was hardly unwelcome. Apprenticing at a sect would likely require tuition fees. Saving up in advance was never wrong. How generous of you, lady. Ding Songyan praised his benefactor according to the trade's custom. With the girl taking the initiative, other listeners tossed copper coins into the basket as well, 50 or 60 in total. Ding Songyan set down his basket and was about to pack up when he noticed the girl, her maidservant, and the remaining listeners had not dispersed. They were still standing there. It's already midday. He cupped his hands again. Please come back early tomorrow. You're not continuing today. The girl in the purple jacket wore an expression of open indignation. Not even this afternoon, Ding Songyan said earnestly. I still need to review the source material. I haven't fully mastered it yet. I'm already racing through this at breakneck speed. If this were a television drama, today's content alone would fill a week of episodes. I already cut plenty of scenes. Also, I could end today's session right at the Realgar wine cliffhanger and leave you dangling. Why would I spoil what comes next? If you don't spend tonight tossing and turning, unable to sleep, how am I supposed to leave a lasting impression? The other listeners drifted away in disappointment. Only the girl remained with her maidservant, cheeks puffed, glaring at Ding Songyan. She has a good temper, actually, not as spoiled as I expected. Ding Songyan drew a quiet conclusion from this. That trouble you mentioned yesterday, how did it turn out? The girl thought for a long time, then decided to offer her help in exchange for more of the story. Talking about money was too vulgar. Thank you for your concern. It's been resolved. Ding Songyan noticed the plaster seller and other storytellers nearby paying attention to their exchange, and said deliberately, It's just that I took a blow to the head and forgot a great deal of things. I can't even remember who hurt me. I'm relying on others to investigate. Miss, it truly isn't that I don't want to continue. I genuinely can't remember. I have to go home and consult the books. Yesterday it took everything I had just to prepare today's material. He was using the opportunity to spread word of his soul departure sickness, so the true provider of the secret classic would have less reason to worry about him or come looking for trouble. Seeing how sincere he was, the girl in purple waved her hand with reluctant disappointment. Then hurry home and rest. I'll ask around these next few days and see if anyone can treat that kind of illness. Please don't cure it. If it's cured, I won't be me anymore. Ding Songyan muttered to himself as he bid farewell to the girl and her maidservant. After entrusting someone to watch his tools, He spent 6 copper coins on a flatbread with a crispy crust and minced pork filling, and ate as he walked toward the Zhen estate on North Water Street. Still has meat juices inside, and a bit of preserved mustard greens. Not bad at all. Ding Songyan was quite satisfied with today's meal. Once inside the Zhen estate, he made his way to the Lotus Pond courtyard, where he found not only cousin Nguyen Sheng and her maidservant Kuith, but also his unearned cousin-in-law, Zhen Quanwang. Zhen Quanwang was in his 30s, wearing a dark scholar's robe and a Chunyang cap that leaned toward the Taoist style. His upper body tilted slightly forward. His face was clean-shaven but covered in visible fine hair, and his ears resembled those of a macaque. Ding Songyan expressed his family's gratitude for recent events to Qin Nguyen Sheng and Zhen Quanwang, then produced 2 items from inside his jacket. One was a hand-copied Buddhist sutra. The other was a folded yellow talisman. Quanwang, Nguyen Sheng, we know the Zhen household is wealthy and powerful and has no need for anything. So our mother personally copied a sutra in our family's prayer hall, hoping it might bless you both with peace and good fortune. And this protective talisman, my father obtained it from Pine Wind Temple outside the city. It will bring you many children and much happiness. According to Ding Shengyi and Liu Yuzhou, although Qin Nguyen Sheng was deeply favored by Zhen Quanwang, she had been in the household for over 2 years now without bearing a single child, and this worried her greatly. Zhen Quanwang and Qin Nguyen Sheng accepted the gifts with evident pleasure. As Ding Songyan had said, what didn't the Zhen family have? What counted was the thought. After some pleasant conversation, Zhen Quanwang had an important guest to entertain and left the Lotus Pond courtyard. Ding Songyan, enjoying the breeze from the water-driven fans and the almost autumnal chill of the room, finally had the chance to tell Qin Nguyen Sheng the general outline of events. But he did not mention the secret classic, as he was unsure whether she was privy to the secret. At the end he asked, Nguyen Sheng, do you know where Master Yu might be? I'd like to thank him in person and offer a small gift. Qin Nguyen Sheng thought for a moment. Master Yu has been very busy these past few days. When he's free, I'll send someone to let you know. Unable to see Master Yu and fish for information, Ding Songyan thought for a moment, then solicited. Nguyen Sheng, after everything that happened, I feel that a man ought to learn some martial arts. Otherwise, I can neither put my parents at ease nor protect myself. Do you know anyone who might take me? With the thick skin honed by years of entrepreneurship and dozens of investor pitches, the stammering was obviously an act. Qin Nguyen Sheng listened with a furrowed brow, then said slowly, Songyan, I understand where you're coming from, but learning martial arts without a patron willing to invest in you is enormously expensive. You need to be prepared for that. Don't rush. Let me ask around. If you could apprentice within the Zhen household or study under a retainer like Master Yu, that would be far better than any public martial hall. What about the Bright Knight sect? Ding Songyan did not hide his ambition, showing not the slightest embarrassment. I have soul departure sickness. How would I know what's appropriate? Qin Nguyen Sheng couldn't help laughing. The Bright Knight sect only recruits disciples once a year at year's end. Outside of that, unless one of their masters takes a personal interest in you and wants to accept you as a disciple, don't even dream of it. And even at year's end, their standards are extremely strict. At your age, without innate talent, it would be very, very difficult. Year's end. Well, I have the secret classic of mountains and seas. Perhaps that could serve as my entrance fee. Ding Songyan pondered for a moment. How old am I exactly? Qin Nguyen Sheng blinked, then smiled bitterly. You were born in the 19th year of Xingping. You've just turned 20. For martial cultivation, that's actually not too late. Disciples of the great sects all wait until 18 before completing body tempering and qi cultivation, so as not to interfere with their physical growth. Only then do they begin aperture refinement. What rank does that correspond to? Ding Songyan asked. Qin Nguyen Sheng laughed. It doesn't rank at all. Before Ding Songyan could ask anything more, Qin Nguyen Sheng sighed with a wistful smile. You actually asked me about martial arts before, you know. I even went out of my way to ask Shengyi. And now, you've forgotten all of it. It's not like I remember much of anything. Ding Songyan wore a look of distress. Qin Nguyen Sheng rose from her chair and paced a few steps. Body tempering and qi cultivation are merely the fundamentals of the martial path. Together, they're called the initial realm, though some call it the mortal realm. It's only at the life realm, when you begin refining the body's apertures, that you become eligible for inclusion in the orchid rankings. But there are many in this realm. Only those with exceptional talent or distinguished backgrounds receive an official rank and become widely known. Ranking isn't based on how many apertures you've refined, but on actual combat performance. Within the life realm, there are 3 ranks, from lowest to highest: path, hall, and chamber. These are the so-called lower 3 ranks, the most common level for martial artists and wandering swordsmen. Ordinary folk like us don't understand the terminology and can't tell the ranks apart. We just call them 9th, 8th, and 7th rank. Shengyi once said that the lower 3 grades don't surpass ordinary people by that much, which is why they're also called the human realm. At this level, the cultivation method hasn't yet manifested much that's extraordinary. In actual combat, what matters more are technique, willpower, experience, wit, weaponry, armor. One slip or miscalculation, and a 7th rank person can be killed by a 9th rank one. Ding Songyan listened with full attention, interrupting Qin Nuansheng from time to time with questions. After covering the life realm and the lower 3 grades, Qin Nuansheng's eyes turned, studying her cousin for a moment before saying solemnly, "I don't know much beyond that, but Shengyi did mention this. If you want to cultivate higher and more advanced arts, if you want to go further on the martial path, you can pick any method you like during the initial realm for body tempering and qi cultivation. But once you reach the life realm, you absolutely cannot refine apertures blindly." "Why is that?" Ding Songyan pressed. Qin Nuansheng tilted her head slightly, recalling. He said that different cultivation methods require different sets of apertures, and different techniques are used to refine them. If a superior art you obtain later requires apertures that overlap with the ones your current method uses, the two will conflict. In mild cases, you suffer a deviation and your martial arts are crippled entirely. In severe cases, you go mad or die on the spot. However, if 2 methods have no overlapping apertures and no conflict, they can be cultivated concurrently or switched between. Actually, even when there is aperture overlap, certain special circumstances allow one to break through this limitation. What special circumstances? Ding Songyan's face was pure eagerness. Qin Nuansheng chuckled softly. "I don't know the rest. Shengyi only gave one example at the time. All martial arts related to snakes can be switched to the study of the true dragon. Overlapping apertures won't conflict in that case. They'll simply be subsumed and transformed. A worm-like jiao evolving into a true dragon, a higher-order art." Ding Songyan grasped the underlying principle of this special case and asked in passing, "Which sect possesses the study of the true dragon?" Qin Nuansheng couldn't help rolling her eyes and glared at him. "You love putting me on the spot. I'm a woman spending all her time at home. What would I know of the Jianghu? All I know is that the most famous is the 6th dragon sect of Xinyu, which carries the Yinglong lineage. You know about the Yinglong, right?" "Of course." Yinglong, the responsive dragon, summons wind and rain, gathers clouds and mist, commands thunder, and rules the myriad skies. When dragon and phoenix appear together, it is an omen of harmony. The annotation read "ancestor of dragons, origin of phoenixes. Dragon in form paired with phoenix wings." The passages from the secret classic flashed through Ding Songyan's mind. This was an ancient deity he had been fairly familiar with in his previous life, so he had read the relevant entries with great care and remembered them clearly. After more idle conversation, Qin Nuansheng said to Ding Songyan, "I nearly forgot. Physician Xiao asked you to visit his clinic in the next day or 2 when you're free. He wants to examine your current condition." "All right." Having already been through one examination, Ding Songyan was no longer afraid of seeing Physician Xiao. Under the guidance of the maidservant Kui, he left the Lotus Pond courtyard. He had just drawn near the main gate when he saw his cousin-in-law, Zhen Quanwang, seeing off a group of people, all smiles and bowing and nodding. The gate stood fully open. The group's leader was a man in his 20s, dressed in feathered robes and a tall ceremonial cap, styled like a reclusive scholar. Yet the man himself had nothing sublime about him. He was noticeably shorter than Ding Songyan, pale and plump with puffy eyelids and a drowsy face. Most distinctive of all were his oversized ears, shaped like a canine's. Behind him walked 4 handmaidens, one cradling a zither, one holding a fan, one bearing a sword, one carrying a box. All were strikingly beautiful and dressed in vivid, eye-catching colors. In addition, 4 guards followed, some old, some in their prime. One had the same canine ears. Another's hands were covered in brown animal fur. A third bore strange markings painted along the sides of his face. The fourth moved with an unsteady, fleeting gait, more ghost than man. In the past 2 days, Ding Songyan had barely seen anyone with visible physical abnormalities. Now he had encountered 5 at once. What a spectacle! He watched the group depart through the main gate, then turned to Kui beside him. Who were those distinguished guests? Is something happening at the Zhen estate? I do not know. Kui shook her head repeatedly. After returning to Dangkang Temple to listen to storytellers for a good while, the setting sun was already hanging above the horizon by the time Ding Songyan returned to Chengyu Lane. Before he even reached the courtyard gate, he heard the sound of something being struck inside. Thwack, thwack, thwack. What's going on? Ding Songyan raised an eyebrow and pushed open the 2 half-closed wooden doors. The first thing that met his eyes was Bull, bare from the waist up, kneeling before the elm tree. His head hung low as Liu Yuzo struck his back again and again with a piece of firewood. You shall not kill the innocent. You shall not lose your temper and brawl. You shall not bully others. Liu Yuzo's face was cold. With each admonition, she brought the wood down on Bull's back, raising red welts, the skin growing raw and mangled with blood. Didn't the matter of Bull killing the small boat gangman get settled last night? Ding Songyan did not immediately intervene. He circled around to where Qingyan stood with both hands over her eyes, unwilling to look at the wounds, set down his trade tools and whispered, "What happened?" Qingyan turned her body to face away from the elm tree, lowering her hands. Bull got into an argument with someone at the docks today. He nearly hit the man, scared him half to death. The foreman told him to apologize, but he refused, so the foreman came to us to complain. I see. Ding Songyan did not ask who was in the right. He only marveled that the foreman must be blind. If it were him, he would never dare force a man that fierce-looking, one whose temper alone could frighten people to death, to apologize. Was the foreman not afraid his whole family might cease to exist? Well, this is why I need to learn martial arts. Otherwise, all you can do is compromise. After mulling it over for a while, Ding Songyan was about to ask his father to persuade their mother that discipline was discipline, but she shouldn't beat Bull half to death, when he saw Ding Shengyi pick up a fresh piece of firewood and hand it to Liu Yuzo after her previous one snapped. Ding Songyan let out a sigh. Using the corner of his eye, he glanced at Qingyan. Does our family's Buddhist practice include any method for subduing inner demons, one that calms the mind and focuses the spirit? He felt that for someone like his elder brother, a born ruffian, family education and emotional bonds alone would not suffice. There had to be internal cultivation as well. Training the mind was the only real cure. Meditation was the path to becoming a Buddha. Qingyan shook her head. No, Ding Songyan pressed. I don't know. Qingyan sighed helplessly. Second brother, I haven't even come of age yet. Stop treating me like I know everything. After Liu Yuzo finished disciplining Bull, Ding Songyan took clean cloth strips, medicine, and other supplies and walked to the elm tree where his brother still knelt. He said quietly, Bull, let me put some medicine on, bear with it. Discipline was discipline, but familial warmth still had to be shown. Otherwise, they would all be finished together. Bull answered in his rumbling voice. It's nothing, I didn't even move when Mother was hitting me. Songyan, you're so nice to me. What I really want is to stay far away from you. Ding Songyan sucked in a breath, cleaned Bull's wounds first, then applied the medicine and wrapped the bandages. Throughout the entire process, Bull did not make a sound. Only his body trembled slightly. It was not until everyone was about to sleep that he was permitted inside to lie on his stomach. Ding Songyan closed the door to the west wing, lit the oil lamp, and said to Qingyan, I need to write tomorrow's story. Will the light bother your sleep? He had come home late and had not yet had time to work out the next section of the legend of the white snake. Not at all. I will fall asleep in no time. Qingyan's face was full of anticipation. Remember to let me read it tomorrow morning. Ding Songyan used the stacked large wooden chest as a desk and the small chest as a chair. He spread out paper, ground ink, picked up the brush, and began diligently recording his ideas. This section of the story would begin with Lady Bai stealing the elixir of immortality to revive Su Xian, who upon waking would have no memory of being frightened to death by a snake's body. The two would then conceive a child, and after 40 weeks of pregnancy, gave birth to the reincarnation of the Wenk star. What was Fahai doing during all this time? As Ding Songyan wrote, something felt off. Fahai just watched and did nothing while Lady Bai and Su Xian lived together as husband and wife, and she even gave birth to the Wenk star. How am I supposed to write this part? He set down the brush, thinking it over, when suddenly he felt someone watching him. He spun around and looked toward the bed. A figure sat there. He did not know when she had arrived. She wore a plain white dress. Her eyes were slightly upturned at the corners. Her nose was small and delicate. Her black hair was bound with a white silk kerchief. She rested her chin on one hand, watching Ding Songyin with a smile. It was none other than the girl who had listened to his story during the day. "You've already worked out what happens next, haven't you?" she asked with a faint smile. The corner of Ding Songyin's mouth twitched involuntarily. Is this a house call to demand the next chapter? Does knowing martial arts mean you can do anything? He glanced toward the screen, saw no movement from Qingyan, and lowered his voice. "It's the middle of the night. Heroine, why not get some rest and listen tomorrow?" He noticed that this girl's aura was remarkably fluid. Yesterday it had been pure, coquettish, artlessly charming. During the day today she was delicate and fragile, but now, at night, she was inexplicably dangerous and alluring. "I can't sleep. All I can think about is whether Su Xian can be saved, what will happen between him and Lady Bai." The girl's voice had shed its softness, taking on a drifting, silken edge. Then she smiled, radiant and lovely. "Do you know why I love this story so much? Why am I so taken with it?" "I don't." Ding Songyin felt a sudden premonition of danger. Before he could react, he felt something ice-cold and slick coil around him. He looked down in alarm. A massive white-scaled serpent's tail, thick beyond belief. It extended from beneath the girl's skirt. Ding Songyin became dumbfounded. "So I've met the real thing. I casually tell the legend of the white snake and run into an actual white snake." "You understand now?" the girl asked, her smile brimming with amusement. Looking at the girl's blooming smile across from him, and feeling the ice-cold, slick serpent tail slowly coiling tighter, the childhood terrors Ding Songyin had accumulated from watching the legend of the white snake and anaconda came flooding back in an instant. He forced a smile and answered her question. "I understand. Heaven have pity on me. Who could have predicted that a white snake would come to listen to my legend of the white snake?" The girl nodded with satisfaction. The massive tail retracted with a swish and vanished without a trace. "So you can show me what you've written tonight, yes?" Of course, of course." Ding Songyin half-turned, picked up the stack of papers and offered them with both hands. The girl read by the light of the oil lamp and the moon, turning pages with genuine attention, occasionally letting out a small exclamation. When she reached the final page, she looked up, thoroughly pleased. "So Lady Bai is even more powerful than I thought. She can go to the heavenly court and steal an elixir of immortality. But what about Fahai? He's already confirmed that Lady Bai is a snake Yao. Why hasn't he come to subdue her?" Good question. That's exactly where I got stuck. And you're hoping Lady Bai gets subdued? If she actually were, you'd be crying. Being a white snake yourself, the immersion must be immense, right? Ding Songyin's body was rigid with tension, but his mind fell into its habitual sardonic commentary as a way of managing his bladder. Without time to think it through properly, he blurted out, "Didn't you just say it yourself? Lady Bai can steal from the heavenly court. She's far more powerful than Fahai. He's out searching for allies right now to ensure absolute certainty before he acts. But Lady Bai just gave birth to Su Shilin. She's still very weak. Wouldn't she be in extreme danger?" The girl was immediately anxious about the plot again, her gaze burning as she waited for Ding Songyin's answer. "You're going to keep asking all the way to the finale, aren't you?" Ding Songyin sighed inwardly. "Lady Bai has allies too. There's a great hero of the Jianghu called Yan Nanshan. He loves nothing more than seeing lovers united and sees nothing wrong with a Yao and a human being in love. He'll happen upon the situation at just the right moment and draw his sword to help." Under duress and pressed for time, Ding Songyin had graduated from adaptation to pure fabrication. The girl let out a long exclamation and visibly relaxed. "Then I'll listen to the full version tomorrow." She smiled and stood. Seeing that she meant no harm, Ding Songyin recovered somewhat from the initial terror of encountering a snake Yao. Half out of curiosity, half to build their connection, he asked, "Is your name also Bai Suzhen?" The girl burst out laughing. "It's not quite that faded. Didn't I already tell you? My name is Zioking. Aren't you a white snake? I assumed Zioking referred to your maidservant. She wore green." Ding Songyin explained. "So a white snake can't be called Zioking." The girl was in excellent spirits, her smile carrying a teasing edge. "Can't my name have Qing in it?" "Fine, fine, fine, you're always right." Ding Songyin was about to speak when a sudden dizziness seized his head. It lasted only an instant. Then everything was normal again. The room before him was still and cool as water. There was no figure in a white dress anywhere. He himself was still in the posture of having just set his brush on its rest. He had never turned to look toward the bed. Everything that had just happened, including the white-skirted snake Yao, was like a fleeting dream he had accidentally slipped into while writing his outline. The dim yellow of the oil lamp and the bright white of the moonlight wove together, hazy and dreamlike. I wasn't asleep. Ding Songyan calmed down and carefully checked. There was no lingering fragrance in the air, but he still believed the girl called Zioking had truly been here. The pages of his story outline, spread across the wooden chest, had been moved from where he left them. Man, being a storyteller in this world is a high-risk profession. Heaven only knows what strange creatures might end up listening to your tales, if you string them along too much or if the ending doesn't satisfy them. The consequences are unimaginable. Ding Songyan seriously weighed whether to report this to the authorities. It took him minutes to reach his decision. So what if she's a snake Yao? Can't a snake Yao be a friend? I took an interest in Zioking from the start and wanted to build a connection because I thought her background was strong, her nature was kind, and she still had a few traces of innocent charm. None of that has changed, so my plans won't change either. Whether she's human or Yao doesn't affect that judgment. I'm not trying to be Su Xian. Moreover, Ding Songyan felt that his relationship with the girl, Zioking, was no longer quite so distant after tonight. They shared something of a secret now. He could now try asking or probing into many things he previously could not. Ding Songyan let out a breath, then thought of the plot points he had improvised in front of Zioking under pressure, and his head began to ache. He would have to use all of them. You could deceive anyone but your benefactor, especially a benefactor who could swallow you whole. He ran through what he had said and decided it was manageable. At the very least, it explained why Fahai did not dare confront Lady Bai directly, but instead lured Su Xian to Jinshan Temple to draw her there. With a plan forming, Ding Songyan picked up his brush, dipped it in ink, and continued working. Dingjiang Prefecture had no curfew. It only closed its gates for the night. But in the depths of night, the narrow lanes remained empty and silent. The maidservant in the green skirt hurried after Zioking, asking with concern, "Miss, why did you use your transformation art to frighten Ding Songyan?" Zioking still wore the same purple outfit from the day. Looking delicate and fragile, she breathed in the cool night breeze and swung her arms happily. He deceived me first. That story was clearly something he made up on the spot, yet he claimed it was a tale he'd recently learned. Same with that song. I asked around. No such musical style exists. But what if he reports it to the authorities? Says he encountered a snake Yao, the maidservant was worried. Zioking laughed. He wouldn't know, but you think the Yi clan and the Bright Knight sect don't? After Emperor Zhuangsu severed the connection between heaven and earth, what snake Yao could possibly take human form? Oh, right. The maidservant relaxed, murmuring to herself, and there are quite a few cultivation methods that produce a serpent body. It's not easy to guess which one. Zioking walked with light steps toward the main street, swinging her arms back and forth, grinning as she spoke. Maintaining human form at will and only revealing the serpent tail when you choose to. That's something only someone at the Heaven Man realm can do. If Ding Songyan actually reports it, he will give the Yi clan and the Bright Knight sect a fright. Mhem, the maidservant caught her mistress's good mood. Besides Heaven Man realm grandmasters, only a few arts specializing in transformation can pull that off. Then she froze. Miss, won't the Yi clan and the Bright Knight sect guess our identities from this and ruin our plans? Oh, right. Zioking blinked and stopped walking. After a few seconds, she pressed her lips together. Ding Songyan probably won't report it. And even if he does go to the authorities, it's second uncle's problem, not mine. I'll get scolded at worst, maybe grounded. I'm used to it anyway. The maidservant was momentarily speechless. Seeing that her mistress was no longer fretting over it, she let it go as well. After a moment's thought, she asked, Miss, do you think we'll be able to hear the whole legend of the white snake before we leave Dingjiang Prefecture? Probably. Zioking pondered for a while, then said with mock ferocity, If not, the night before we leave, I'll kidnap Ding Songyan and make him tell the story all night long. Until the very end. Yes, perfect. The maidservant wholeheartedly approved. Troubles forgotten, the mistress-servant duo strolled through the sparsely populated lanes with light laughter and playful banter, making their way toward Tianyang Hall. Under the blazing sun, beneath a large tree outside Dangkang Temple. Working from last night's outline, Ding Songyin introduced Yan Nanshan and drove the story forward until Fahai lured Su Xian to his stronghold at Jinshan Temple. Seeing Xiaoking's face once again wearing that look of how can you possibly stop here, he knew she would likely visit again tonight. So he suppressed the impulse to glean information on the spot. Too many ears here. Not the place for that kind of conversation. He would wait until the quiet of night. After a simple lunch, Ding Songyin remembered Qin Nuan Sheng's reminder from the day before. He made his way to Longsing Street and found physician Xiao's life-extending clinic. He had barely stepped through the door, not yet having a chance to ask anyone anything, when he spotted a familiar figure sitting in a chair to the side. It was the one-legged, three-eyed Zhengheng. King Yin asked me to bring the gift we prepared to Beiyoping Lane tonight to thank Zhengheng. I didn't expect to run into him at the clinic at midday. Ding Songyin walked over and asked Zhengheng, whose horizontal eye in the center of his forehead was tightly shut. "Zhengheng, what happened?" Zhengheng looked up at him, listless. "My father was suddenly struck by unbearable stomach pain. We had no choice but to bring him to physician Xiao. The physician says it's not looking good. He needs to be operated on." Operated on. Ding Songyin instinctively wanted to dig at his ears, wondering if he had misheard. Doesn't that term feel a little out of place here? He had just sat down when the wooden door separating the inner and outer rooms opened. Physician Xiao emerged wearing a blue straight-cut robe, followed by two young assistants and two boys. One of the boys carried a wooden tray holding thin willow leaf blades, flat-edged blades, round needles, tweezers, scissors, catgut thread, and other instruments, all soaked in blood. Zhengheng shot to his foot and hopped toward the physician. Physician Xiao gave a slight nod. "Your father had an intestinal blockage. I've removed the affected section and sutured the two ends back together." As he explained the situation, Ding Songyin listened in stunned disbelief. Medicine in this world has advanced to this degree. He'll need to stay in the clinic for at least a month. Physician Xiao then turned to Ding Songyin. "Wait a moment, let me clean up." "Of course, Physician Xiao." Only today did Ding Songyin notice that the physician's pupils seemed tinged with white. Once seated again, Zhengheng was visibly relieved. He sighed to Ding Songyin beside him. "Before Emperor Zhuangsu severed the connection between heaven and earth, our clan had the Jilyang, the auspicious horse. Simply riding one granted a lifespan of 1,000 years. Nowadays, not only can the Jilyang itself barely survive and has nearly gone extinct, but even if you had the great fortune to encounter one, riding it would extend your life to 200 at most. 200 is plenty. I only made it past 30 in my previous life." Ding Songyin grumbled inwardly. "By today's standards, 200 years isn't bad at all." Zhengheng continued in his monologue. "If there were still Jilyang, my father wouldn't be suffering like this before he's even reached 70. At least physician Xiao is here and was able to save him." Ding Songyin offered a word of comfort. He did not ask why Zhengheng's two elder brothers had not appeared. King Yin had not mentioned them either. Given what he knew of the family's obsession with mechanical devices and their frequent accidents, it was better not to ask. After chatting for a while longer, Ding Songyin produced the small gift his sister had bought, box and all, and handed it to Zhengheng, expressing his thanks. A smile appeared on Zhengheng's face. "King Yin is always so thoughtful. I'd be rude to refuse." "Songyin, I used to think you were timid and spineless, nothing like a real man. If not for King Yin, I wouldn't have bothered with you at all. But looking at things now, you're actually a decent fellow." "Bro, if you can't talk nicely, just don't say anything." "You will never marry my sister in this lifetime." Ding Songyin discovered that Zhengheng's social skills were genuinely poor, the kind of person who couldn't even fake it. Then again, when interacting with someone like this, you never needed to keep your guard up. No need to worry about them being two-faced. After a moment's thought, Ding Songyin changed the subject. "Zhengheng, that eye on your forehead, do you never use it?" Zhengheng glanced at Ding Songyin, his tone odd. "You do know. I hurt my head the day I went missing, causing me to forget a great deal. I'm here today for a follow-up with physician Xiao," Ding Songyin said frankly. "No wonder the coincidence." Zhengheng's expression cleared. He pointed at the horizontal eye on his forehead. "This is an yin eye. It can only open at night. It lets me see the flow of heaven and earth's qi, see wandering ghosts drifting about. If I want to craft anything arcane, I have to work at night using the yin eye." "You can see ghosts?" Ding Songyin jumped with a start. "Isn't this supposed to be a martial world?" "No, wait. There are snake yao, so ghosts aren't unreasonable. I recall that How Do the Earth Mother's description included sovereign of the netherworld. The legacies she left behind might very well be able to suppress evil spirits. Xingheng laughed. What's there to be scared of? Wandering ghosts have neither intelligence nor supernatural powers. They're absurdly weak. They can't harm anyone. If they encounter someone with slightly stronger yang energy, they dissolve like thin ice meeting fire. And even if you leave them alone, after 3 to 5 days they'll either sink into the netherworld or dissipate entirely into heaven and earth. I see. Ding Songyan wore a look of obvious relief. Inwardly, he had already resolved never to visit Xingheng at night. Who knew whether that yin eye could detect something wrong with his soul? After a while, Physician Xiao sent a boy to invite Ding Songyan upstairs. In a room hung with landscape paintings, Physician Xiao sat cross-legged behind a carved brown wooden table adorned with auspicious cloud patterns. Spread before him were several thread-bound antique texts and a few letter pages. He gestured for Ding Songyan to sit, then asked with a smile, "Have you recalled any memories these past few days?" "No." Ding Songyan answered honestly. Physician Xiao observed Ding Songyan for a moment with those slightly white-tinged eyes. "Let me examine you again. Give me your hand." Ding Songyan assumed it was a pulse reading. He had just extended his hand when he noticed the physician producing a gold needle. The seemingly soft needle suddenly went rigid and pierced the aperture point at Ding Songyan's wrist. A wisp of cool qi entered his body and traveled swiftly along the meridians. "What's this?" Ding Songyan asked, both anxious and curious. Physician Xiao did not answer. He kept his eyes half closed as he concentrated on sensing something. After a moment, he reached up to stroke his thin beard, his face full of bewilderment. "Soul and aspect in harmony. Soul and aspect in harmony." When his stroking grew more and more forceful, Ding Songyan began to worry he might accidentally yank a few strands out. Finally, Physician Xiao withdrew the gold needle and, completely ignoring Ding Songyan, began flipping through the pile of thread-bound texts with near-frantic urgency. "What's the matter?" Ding Songyan couldn't help asking again. Physician Xiao returned to normal and pointed at the letters beside his hand. "After your first visit, I wrote to my master and sent it by carrier bird, seeking his counsel." His reply came quickly. He said the sect's legacy chapters of the Medicine King mention that the cause might be a soul aspect discordance. "I searched through every medical text I have and found some relevant material. If a person is frightened severely enough, the 3 ethereal souls and 7 corporeal spirits can scatter. Certain martial arts can achieve the same effect. When the souls and spirits return to the body, a soul aspect discordance may occur, causing loss of memories. In severe cases, if the souls sustain damage while separated from the body, the 3 souls become deficient and the 7 spirits are incomplete. The person either becomes dull-witted or bedridden. I believed I had found the cause of your soul departure sickness, but your soul and aspect are in harmony." Physician Xiao tugged at his beard again in frustration. "Oh, and the gold needle was for?" Ding Songyan asked cautiously. "My soul and aspect are actually in harmony." Physician Xiao answered in passing, "A gold needle reads the soul. You could have said so earlier. If I'd known, I wouldn't have come." A cold sweat broke over Ding Songyan in retrospect. This was the price of ignorance, but it also eliminated many of his worries. Even an inspection of the soul itself could not detect his secret. After leaving the life-extending clinic, Ding Songyan saw that it was still early. He returned to Dangking Temple, planning to listen to stories of the martial world and Jianghu anecdotes for an hour or two before heading home. The original Ding Songyan had only been skilled at telling historical tales. The scripts he left behind covered martial matters sparingly, though not entirely. After all, the Jianghu and the imperial court were closely intertwined, an inalienable part of the other. He had just arrived at his patch of open ground when he spotted someone standing beneath the tree's shade. It was Su Chang'an, who had not walked to the temple with him this morning. Su Chang'an was still in his green narrow-sleeved robe with a black cloth binding his hair. He paced back and forth, visibly agitated. Ding Songyan's first instinct was to turn and leave, to avoid whatever trouble was coming his way. But Su Chang'an had already spotted him and called out with relief, "Brother Ding, what is it?" Ding Songyan replied in resignation. Su Chang'an said anxiously, "My master has disappeared." Disappeared? Ding Songyan's heart skipped a beat. The last time he'd heard about someone disappearing, it was the original Ding Songyan himself. Su Chang'an spoke rapidly. I went to my master's yesterday for the test, but he wasn't there. He hadn't told any of us beforehand. Today I went again, still not there. And he left no coded message. Brother Ding, something must have happened, right? He had always thought Ding Songyan was timid and meek like himself. That was why they had gotten along in the first place. Neither could look down on the other. It had absolutely nothing to do with the fact that the Ding family's daughter was breathtakingly beautiful. But these past 2 days, he had noticed that Ding Songyan had somehow become sharp-witted and perceptive, and now the moment trouble arose, his first thought was to seek his advice. Gone since yesterday. Ding Songyan was mulling it over when a strange thought surfaced. He asked gravely, "Was your master on good terms with me?" Su Chang'an looked blank. "You two got along well. Just a few days ago at midday, my master invited you to his courtyard for wine and food." "How many days ago exactly?" Ding Songyan pressed. "You can't remember and you're asking me," Su Chang'an thought back. "About a week ago, I'd say." Ding Songyan narrowed his eyes. "I genuinely don't remember. Because I also disappeared recently. I was later found, but I'd forgotten a great deal." He stressed the word disappeared. Su Chang'an went pale with alarm. "You disappeared too. Was that the same day? I asked you about it. You never answered." Could the original Ding Songyan's secret classic have come from Su Chang'an's master? Did he steal it from somewhere? If that's the case, the man is vicious. A seasoned thief like him must know how to deal in stolen goods. From the very beginning, he probably intended to use the original Ding Songyan as a scapegoat. Has he fled, or has he met the same fate as the original Ding Songyan? Ding Songyan's thoughts raced. He said to Su Chang'an, "Take me to your master's place." "Right!" The frightened Su Chang'an seemed to have found his anchor. He completely forgot that Brother Ding was an even worse fighter than he was. Ding Songyan had taken a few steps after Su Chang'an when he stopped abruptly. "First, let's go to North Water Street. No, the docks," he told Su Chang'an. "Why?" Su Chang'an was confused. "Try using your head." Ding Songyan sighed. "If we run into danger, is it you who's going to fight them or me? We're inside the city. It can't be that bad." Su Chang'an glanced up at the tallest watchtower. Ding Songyan ignored him and pointed at the brown-tiled roof of Dangkang Temple before heading toward the docks. "Right. If there's danger inside Master's house, the watchtower sentries won't be able to see it." Su Chang'an's stomach clenched and he hurried after him. The docks lay outside the nearest city gate from Dangkang Temple. Here the river was wide, lined with vessels large and small, tower ships, pleasure barges, long-haul boats, centipede ships, and many more. Water wheels positioned along tributaries drove mechanisms that hoisted heavy cargo from ships and set it before nearby warehouses, where laborers carried, shouldered, or carted away wooden crates and burlap sacks. Ding Songyan swept his gaze across the scene. He saw densely packed tower ships and a sizable island far out in the middle of the river covered with trees and piled with jagged boulders. While searching for Bull, his eye caught two figures seated at the prow of a tower ship, playing chess. The distance was too great to make out the details of their clothing, only that both wore black. One was an old man with white hair and a beard. The other wore a black gauze-veiled hat, their gender impossible to determine. Playing chess in a veil, are they a monk who's renounced the world, or is there some abnormality on their face or head that cannot be seen by others? Ding Songyan muttered to himself as he walked toward a group of laborers. He asked Su Chang'an casually, "Is that Heavengaze Gate Island?" Zheng Heng's mother had died on her way to that island while flying there in a wooden kite carriage. "Yes." Su Chang'an already knew Brother Ding had forgotten many things. "Why is it called Heavengaze Gate?" Ding Songyan did not bother hiding his curiosity. Su Chang'an recalled and said, "They say that after Emperor Zhuangsu severed the connection between heaven and earth, only a few places in all the great wilderness could scenes of the heavenly realm be glimpsed. This was one of them, hence the name, Heavengaze. Then at some point, during some dynasty or other, even that view disappeared. In the great wilderness's mythology, Emperor Zhuangsu's presence is overwhelming." Ding Songyan sighed with emotion. Before long, he found Bull, who at over 9 feet tall was conspicuous wherever he went. Bull had several burlap sacks strapped to his back and was walking toward a nearby donkey cart with easy, steady strides. "Bull." Once Bull had set down his load and was wiping his face with the coarse cloth hanging around his neck, Ding Songyan called out to him. Bull came over, delighted. "Songyan, you need me." Ding Songyan nodded. "I'm going somewhere. It might be a little dangerous. I'd like you to come along and keep watch." "No problem." Bull said nothing more and walked straight to the foreman. His rumbling voice sounded. My brother needs my help. My mother said to look after him. I have to leave early today. His eyes gleamed, his face expectant, as though waiting for the foreman to refuse. If he did, that would be a legitimate reason to act. No need to worry about Mother getting angry. The foreman was a stubble-faced middle-aged man. He saw the look in Bull's eyes and shuddered. Go, go, he answered without hesitation. Bull followed Ding Songyan and Su Chang'an away from the docks, looking faintly disappointed. Autumn Waiter Lane before a courtyard. Su Chang'an deftly picked the lock on his master's front gate with half a piece of iron wire. The courtyard here was far more spacious than the Ding family's, and the house contained 5 rooms. The 3 of them searched slowly but found no trace of foul play. However, they did turn up quite a few other things. This much silver. Su Chang'an stared at the 5 or 6 silver ingots, dozen-odd silver pieces, and a substantial quantity of loose silver he had found in a hidden compartment. In his astonishment, he nearly forgot his master had vanished. He didn't flee. Ding Songyan's eyes narrowed at once. Who flees and leaves the bulk of their fortune behind? Ding, what do we do? Su Chang'an stuffed all the silver back into the hidden compartment, then turned to Ding Songyan in frightened panic. He too was beginning to find this deeply unsettling. His master had left this much silver hidden here without any worry, then not come home for days. All his disciples are thieves. Who among them can't find a hidden compartment? Who among them won't be tempted by that much fortune? Ding Songyan was silent for a few breaths. Report it to the authorities. Dingjiang Prefecture was no small city, and the surrounding towns and villages were numerous. The 3 of them had no way to search on their own, and it would be easy to run into danger. It was better left to the authorities to handle it. This was Ding Songyan's instinctive choice. Moreover, doing so would give him a legitimate reason to come into contact with the Bright Knight sect, the Yi clan, and other local factions. It laid the groundwork for gathering information and seeking a discipleship later. Su Chang'an's face paled. Report to the authorities. Tell the people at the Yamen that my master has disappeared, that he's a veteran thief, that I was under his apprenticeship, and that I'm currently earning a living outside Dangking Temple. Even if I don't tell them, they'll find out. I hadn't even gotten around to worrying about you yet. Ding Songyan said gravely, if your master simply had an accident, like falling into the river and drowning, then there's nothing to worry about afterward. But if this involves something confidential, how many lives do you think you have to spare against whatever danger might come? Are you going to pray at Dangkang Temple and hope the repercussions don't involve you? Su Chang'an went even paler. He stammered for a long time before saying quietly, Brother Ding, how about we look a little more first? If we still can't find him by the end of today, we'll report it immediately. Where did your master usually go? Ding Songyan did not want to be the one filing the report. This had to come from Su Chang'an, the disciple. That was the only way it would be proper. He could only accompany him and take the opportunity to meet people from the Yi clan and the Bright Knight sect. Su Chang'an recalled, my master never married and never had children, just us few disciples. He didn't gamble either. He only liked visiting North Lane for wine and women. He had some regular companions there. But we already went looking yesterday. They all said he hadn't visited for at least 4 days. Other than that, suddenly, Su Chang'an's eyes lit up. He's been to the mass graves 3 times in the past couple of weeks. Said he was looking for something called corpse shade grass. The mass graves. Ding Songyan seized on the key phrase. The original Ding Songyan had died in a ruined temple on the road to those same mass graves. So this really was connected to Su Chang'an's master. Did he actually dig up the secret classic from a grave at the mass burial ground? Wait, do mass graves even have proper headstones? Ding Songyan did not let his emotions show. He asked with feigned curiosity, what did he want corpse shade grass for? Su Chang'an glanced at Bull, whose face was a mixture of curiosity and fierceness, and swallowed. For aperture forging. A few days ago, my master got drunk and told us disciples he'd finally obtained a suitable forging method and had a chance to break through the human realm. Corpse shade grass is one of the things needed for the forging process. What is aperture forging? Ding Songyan asked without any hesitation, having already proclaimed his soul departure sickness far and wide. Su Chang'an understood his confusion, given what he knew of Ding Songyan's condition. He chose his words carefully. All martial arts in our mountains and seas realm either descend from celestial theurchs and gods, or were created from consuming divine beasts. The crucial part is aperture refinement. But can the apertures of celestial theurchs, gods, and divine beasts be identical to those of us humans? Apparently, the difference is massive. So after refining all the apertures that can correspond between them and the human body, you have to measure distances and create entirely new apertures at suitable positions in the body, forging them from nothing for further refinement. And forging apertures requires needle guiding, medicinal infusion, and sometimes even cutting open the body to implant rare metals and exotic alloys. Every art has its own forging method that requires different materials. Many sects keep the forging method separate from the refinement method. Only the cultivation teaching elders who never leave the sect grounds possess the forging techniques. They assist disciples when needed. That way, even if a disciple is defeated while wandering the Jianghu, the corresponding art won't be leaked. I've never encountered such methods for cultivation. No wonder medicine in this world is so advanced. It's a daily necessity with a clear lineage of development. Ding Songyan was astonished. He could see that separating forging from refinement did prevent superior arts from leaking, but it also carried a hidden risk. When a sect was at its height, this was a brilliant safeguard. But once a sect declined or relocated, it became all too easy to lose the critical components of their superior arts. The Bright Knight sect had probably suffered exactly this fate back then. Ding Songyan asked thoughtfully, "What if an aperture is located on an extra organ that only the divine beast had? Like a second heart, what if the measured distance falls outside the body entirely?" He remembered that many creatures in the classic of mountains and seas were enormous and bizarrely shaped. If one truly tried to map them onto a human frame, even scaled down proportionally, quite a few apertures would end up beyond the body's boundaries. Su Chang'an was stumped by the two questions. "I don't know. I've heard that the Great Proliferation Realm is the most complex realm. It's not just aperture forging. There are many barriers and many subdivisions within it. That's why the Orchid rankings divide this single realm into 4 full ranks: anomaly manifested, profound discerned, mortal surpassed, and form transfigured. Many disciples of great sects spend their entire lives stuck in this realm. Those who can enter the Dharma realm and become grandmasters are exceedingly rare. Initial realm, human realm, Great Proliferation Realm, Dharma Realm, Heaven Man Realm, Spirit Platform Realm." Ding Songyan finally had a relatively clear picture of this world's martial cultivation stages. No wonder everyone says that once you've refined your apertures, switching to a different art afterward is nearly impossible. Seeing that Su Chang'an could offer nothing more, Ding Songyan brought the topic back. "Your master is already getting on in his years. Why was he still so obsessed on aperture forging? It's precisely because he's getting old that he's desperate to forge apertures and advance to the Great Proliferation Realm." Su Chang'an explained earnestly. "The Great Proliferation Realm is far stronger than the human realm. If he could reach anomaly manifested, not only would his lifespan increase, but he might later have the chance to steal divine medicines or treasures that could extend his life by over 100 years. It extends your lifespan too. Then I'd be obsessed as well." Ding Songyan glanced at his very quiet elder brother, then looked at Su Chang'an, murmuring as if to himself, "Your master only obtained that suitable forging method in the past 2 weeks or so. The original Ding Songyan had also obtained the secret classic around the same time. Probably. I never saw my master go to the mass graves before that." Su Chang'an pleaded, "Brother Ding, Bull, please come with me to the mass graves. If we can't find my master there, we'll go straight to the authorities." Finding him at a place like the mass graves would be the frightening part. Ding Songyan said reluctantly, "It's dangerous outside the city." "Not dangerous at all. The stretch from the city gate to the burial grounds is all under the watchtower's surveillance. Only the burial grounds on the far side of the hill are out of sight." Su Chang'an pleaded desperately. So why did the original Ding Songyan go into that ruined temple, leaving his death such a mystery? Couldn't he have just talked or made the exchange by the roadside? The watchtower sentries wouldn't have known what he was doing anyway. Or could they actually see clearly what someone was holding from that distance, making caution necessary? Ding Songyan agreed reluctantly. The trio walked for the better part of an hour before arriving at the mass graves outside the city. The vegetation here was lush. Even in the blazing summer heat and the relentless sun, cold gusts swept through from time to time, sending chills down the spine. Unlike what Ding Songyan had imagined, the place was not strewn everywhere with rotting corpses wrapped in straw mats. The vast majority had been buried in shallow pits to prevent plagues. Only a few scattered bones lay deep in the undergrowth. "Roughly where did your master say the corpse shade grass was?" Ding Songyin asked. "It should be." "At the boundary between the front hill and the back hill," Su Chang'an said hastily. "Brother Ding, I won't ask you to come with me to the back hill. If we don't find him at the boundary, we'll go back to the city and report. I wouldn't go even if you begged." Ding Songyin stood beside the 9-foot-tall bull who brimmed with vitality and figured that even if there were wandering ghosts here, they probably wouldn't dare come close. As they neared the back hill, Bull suddenly sniffed the air. He pointed at a cluster of trees. "There's blood that way, and a stench." "Blood." Ding Songyin gestured for Bull and Su Chang'an to go ahead. Rounding the trees, a nauseating stench hit them immediately, nearly making Ding Songyin retch. Before he could adjust, he heard Su Chang'an murmur blankly, "Master." "Erg," he vomited. Ding Songyin looked up and saw a bloated, rotting corpse lying among the bushes, swarmed by flies. The ribs were broken, the chest and abdomen split open to either side. The internal organs appeared to be entirely gone. On the right thumb was a jade thumb ring. Ding Songyin did not look closely at the corpse's features. He was about to vomit himself. Of the three, only Bull was unfazed. He studied the body carefully, then patted Su Chang'an's shoulder. "Su Chang'an, is it really your master?" "That thumb ring, it's my master's. He always wore it," Su Chang'an said while gasping for breath. "What about the face?" Bull pressed. Su Chang'an took a few glances subconsciously, then vomited again, bringing up yellow-green bile. It was a long time before he managed to speak. "Yes, I can make it out." He turned away and grabbed Ding Songyan's sleeve, saying in horror, "Brother Ding, let's report this to the authorities." Ding Songyan, also facing away from the corpse with his hand over his nose and mouth, shook his head slowly. "No, we will go to the Zhen estate." Circumstances had changed. This clearly was connected to the original Ding Songyan and the secret classic. Otherwise, two people would not have died in the same stretch of time, at locations not far apart. It was better to let the Zhen household handle it. Zhen estate, cold water pavilion. Patriarch Zhen paced the room, spinning the iron balls in his palm as he listened to Master Yu's report on the past 2 days. No leads pointing to any major sect or any of the 21 heretical ways. Zhen Qianfen asked with hesitation. "None," Master Yu in his small cap answered honestly. Zhen Qianfen let out a scoff. "Then what exactly is the small boat gang up to? First they provoked us repeatedly, giving us justification. We successfully registered the conflict with the Yamen. Then they stationed only one Chen Yuliang in the prefecture city, someone even you can handle. Do they think that because I've retired for years, I can no longer act personally? Patriarch, you're only 60. Still in your prime." Master Yu had witnessed Zhen Qianfen's strength firsthand. Zhen Qianfen was about to speak again when a clan member responsible for guarding the estate entered and saluted the both of them. "Patriarch Master Yu, concubine Qin's cousin, Ding Songyan, has come again. He says he's discovered something important." Zhen Estate, listening water pavilion. After relaying every detail of the matter to Master Yu without omission, Ding Songyan, Su Chang'an, and Bull were arranged to wait here for further developments. This place had no big basins of ice or water-driven fans, but nearby, water cascaded from the top of an artificial hill, its constant splashing lending the area a refreshing coolness. Su Chang'an alternated between sitting, standing, and pacing, unable to keep his anxiety in check. He looked up and saw Bull happily stuffing dried meat into his mouth as he chewed with gusto. Ding Songyan was leisurely sipping tea, sampling the mung bean cakes and sesame candy the Zhen household had provided. "Brother Ding, aren't you nervous? Aren't you worried?" Su Chang'an couldn't help asking. Ding Songyan used the lid of his cup to push aside the floating tea leaves and smiled slightly. "Being nervous won't help. Besides, that's your master, not mine. I've heard from old plays that a man who keeps a calm lake for a face while thunder rages in his chest may be appointed supreme general. Brother Ding, you're definitely destined for more than storytelling," Su Chang'an said with admiration. Ding Songyan pointed at his elder brother. "Then what does that make him?" Bull was wholly absorbed in the Zhen household's refreshments, paying no attention to either of them, showing not a trace of anxiety or concern. Probably just slow in the head. Su Chang'an did not dare say this aloud. Bull's bare forearms were as thick as his own thighs. After the better part of an hour, Master Yu returned to the cold water pavilion. He said to Patriarch Zhen, "The dead man is Zhang Rui, a well-known thief leader in the prefecture city. This book was found on his body." Zhen Qianfen, who had already set aside his iron balls, took the book. The paper was tough and somewhat water-resistant, covered in fold marks. On the cover, several large characters read, 10 bodies, 100 hands, blameless profound art. Turning to the inner pages, he found a plum blossom-shaped hidden mark and a name in different handwriting from the art itself. Jia Yushu. Zhen Qianfen flipped rapidly to the final page, which bore the words stealing heaven's secrets, but contained only a few sparse lines of text with nothing following. Incomplete, but sufficient to practice to the perfected great proliferation realm. Jia Yushu. As in the Nine Lives Divine Thief, Master Yu replied. Not far from Zhang Rui's corpse, we dug up another body already reduced to bones. The skeletal proportions match this cultivation method. It should be the Nine Lives Divine Thief, Jia Yushu. He was most likely the one who stole the secret classic from the estate. One of Patriarch Zhen's 4 ears twitched suddenly. He nodded slightly. So it was him. Physician Xiao has examined the remains. He estimates Jia Yushu has been dead for approximately 9 months, Master Yu continued. Patriarch Zhen's expression shifted several times. A glow in his eyes flared. He stole the secret classic 9 months ago and then immediately died at the mass graves. Useless. What? Master Yu was dumbfounded. In all his years at the Zhen estate, he knew the old master never let his emotions show on his face. Why such an obvious outburst today, and calling Jia Yushu useless? In the indescribable silence that followed, Zhen Qianfen murmured to himself, the one who killed Jia Yushu, why didn't they take the secret classic? Why didn't they take this blameless profound art? Heh, 9 lives divine thief. Even 9 lives couldn't save him in the end. Master Yu said honestly, Physician Xiao believes Jia Yushu was not murdered. It was suicide. Suicide. Zhen Qianfen's eyelids rose, unable to hide his shock. A moment later, his expression became extraordinarily complex, as though something had occurred to him. Listening water pavilion. Seeing Master Yu enter, Su Chang'an rushed forward to meet him. Ding Songyan set down his teacup and followed close behind. Bull licked his fingers with reluctance and stood up slowly. You cannot speak of this to anyone. The official story is that Zhang Rui offended the Zhen household and has since fled the city. Master Yu's gaze swept across all 3 faces before settling on Su Chang'an. The items found on your master's body cannot be given to you. They weren't his to begin with. As for your master's courtyard and silver, you and your fellow disciples can discuss among yourselves how to divide them. Su Chang'an's heart settled back into place. He nodded with profound gratitude, again and again. Master Yu gestured for him and Bull to leave first, keeping only Ding Songyan behind. Then, in a low voice, he said to Ding Songyan, the Patriarch is impressed by your conduct these past few days. Sharp-witted, decisive under pressure, and composed far beyond your years. Concubine Qin asked about martial training on your behalf earlier. The Patriarch has the following offers. If you want to join the Bright Knight sect, the Zhen household can find you a good martial hall to begin body tempering and qi cultivation in advance, at no cost to you. If you'd rather join the Zhen household, everything except the Zhen clan's own secret arts is on the table. Ding Songyan listened carefully but showed no obvious delight. His experience told him that whenever such promising words appeared, a but inevitably followed. If there were none, he would actually be frightened. He would run the other way. But you'll need to do something. Master Yu's tone shifted. What is it? Is it dangerous? Ding Songyan asked, having expected as much. Nothing dangerous. You just need to keep your mouth shut. You cannot tell anyone about it, including Concubine Qin, including your parents and siblings, Master Yu said, staring into Ding Songyan's eyes. Before Ding Songyan could respond, he abruptly changed the subject. That legend of the white snake you've been telling outside Dankang Temple is good. People in the streets are already talking about it, but some are unhappy. They think you're breaking the rules, jumping from historical accounts straight into legends and sagas. If they didn't know you were connected to the Zhen household, they'd have complained to the guild long ago, and would already be making trouble for you openly and behind the scenes. Rivals in any trade are natural enemies. Ding Songyan was not surprised. He had already prepared his excuse for any colleagues who might come looking for trouble. I'm young and lustful, and was trying to win Miss Xiaoking's favor. I would tell fewer stories afterward and devote most of my energy to martial training. Seeing that Ding Songyan showed neither alarm nor anger nor fear, Master Yu gave a slight nod. There is a distinguished guest staying at the estate. He enjoys legends and sagas, but does not wish anyone to know he's here. In the past, we've always had Gen clan members collect scripts and teach themselves storytelling to maintain secrecy. By now, that guest has grown tired of every common tale. Your legend of the white snake has appeared at exactly the right time. If you agree to narrate it to him and keep it secret, you'll be treated as one of our own. All the benefits I just mentioned will follow. With Nguyen Sheng here, I'm already half a Zhen household member. Ding Songyan established the relationship first, then asked carefully, does this distinguished guest have any other preferences? I sell my art, but not my body. It took Master Yu several seconds to grasp Ding Songyan's hidden meaning. His expression changed slightly. That guest only enjoys listening to legends and sagas. If he wanted anything else, do you think the Zhen household couldn't find it and would need to come to you? Good. Ding Songyan acknowledged to himself silently. Master Yu looked at him. There's no need to answer now. Give me your reply tomorrow. Ding Songyan exhaled with relief and took the opportunity to express his gratitude to Master Yu for everything that had happened before. Chengyu Lane, the Ding family courtyard. After dinner, once the table, chairs, and dishes had been cleared, Ding Songyan squatted before the elm tree to clean his teeth with a water bowl and a pig-bristle toothbrush. His father, Ding Shengyi, was beside him doing the same. After gargling and spitting, Ding Songyan looked at his father and asked thoughtfully, Father, the Yi clan's arts aren't taught to anyone outside the clan, are they? Over the past 2 days, he had discovered that the Yi clan was one of the 3 great clans in the 2 faiths and 3 clans of Great Zhao, a top-tier faction with grandmasters. It was a powerful family clan far stronger than the Bright Knight sect, whose influence was limited to Dingjiang Prefecture. And the county marshal, Yi Qingkang, was a direct descendant of the Yi clan. Ding Shengyi spat out his rinse water, turned to study Ding Songyan for a moment, then said, You'd have to marry in and change surnames. And Marshal Yi doesn't have a daughter, so you can forget about it. The corner of Ding Songyan's mouth twitched. Father, you don't seem to mind that sort of thing much. Ding Shengyi, whose disposition carried a slightly feminine air, chuckled. When I was down on my luck, I ate 1 meal for every 3 I skipped. If the Liu family hadn't taken an interest in me, I might have frozen to death at home or starved by the roadside. Back then, I didn't see our Ding ancestors doing anything to help. Maybe the Liu family taking an interest was the ancestors' doing. Ding Songyan offered a small rebuttal. It sounded like his mother's maiden family still had considerable wealth back in Yujiang Prefecture. Ding Shengyi fell silent. After a moment, he sighed. The Yi clan is actually quite inclusive. If you truly render great service, they'll allow your descendants to restore their original surname. You just have to become a branch of the Yi family, and the transmission of arts would follow Yi clan rules. Ding Songyan acknowledged this, then asked, Father, why did our family have to leave home and come to Dingjiang to depend on Nuansheng? This had been nagging at him, especially having just discovered that the Liu family's situation seemed to be quite comfortable. Ding Shengyi's hands trembled suddenly. A long time passed before he patted Ding Songyan's shoulder. It's good that you've forgotten. He paused, his expression darkening. When I was down on my luck, I did some things I'm not proud of. After the Liu family's fortunes declined, those things caught someone's attention. We had no choice but to come to Dingjiang and rely on Nuansheng. Don't ask for specifics. Rest assured, what happened to you has nothing to do with it. If it did, I would already be sitting in a cell. With that, he rose and went back inside. That night, lying in bed, Ding Songyan spoke through the screen. Qingyan, why did our family leave Yujiang Prefecture? Qingyan laughed. Only you, father and mother, know about that. I begged you to tell me before. You kept your mouth shut tight. You wouldn't say a word. And now you're asking me. As she spoke, her voice turned dreamy. Back then, we lived in a 3-courtyard compound even though there were other branches of the Liu family there too, and we only had half a courtyard. But it was still better than now. There were clay pipes that drew water up from the well. We had a toilet with a basin. Ding Songyan did not feel much emotion at this. He only felt that with Bull's terrifying nature and the hidden dangers in his father's past, the Ding family looked stable on the surface but could face a storm at any moment. He made his decision. He would accept the Zhen household's assignment. No longer vexed, Ding Songyan was about to close his eyes and sleep when a cold breeze swept over him, making him shiver. You haven't even written tomorrow's story yet. How can you possibly fall asleep? A soft, sweet voice murmured gently beside his ear. A voice that was perfectly pleasant by any measure fell upon Ding Songyan's ears like a death knell. Shit. I forgot someone would come knocking for the next chapter. Ding Songyin's eyes snapped open and he sat upright. From the other side of the screen, King Yin asked drowsily, "Second brother, why did you suddenly sit up?" Ding Songyin had already turned to look beside the old paper window where Zioking stood with a faint smile. She wore a plain white round-collared jacket over a pleated skirt of silk yellow. Her hair was loosely gathered with a pearl flower golden hairpin that swayed with her movements before they softly cascaded. In the bright moonlight, she raised her right index finger and pressed it vertically to her lips. Ding Songyin understood her meaning immediately. He spoke through the screen to King Yin. "I got home late today and forgot I still haven't written tomorrow morning's story. I have to get up and work. In my last life, I had to stay up late working. In this life, it's the same." King Yin's tone relaxed, tinged with a smile. "All the best, second brother. I'll be waiting to read it in the morning." Not even a word of concern for her brother. "You didn't even tell me not to burn the midnight oil." Ding Songyin pulled on his clothes, shifted the wooden chests, and assembled his makeshift desk and chair. He lit the oil lamp, set out paper and inkstone, glanced at Zioking, who had already seated herself on the edge of the bed, then rubbed his face to drive out the last traces of sleep. The crucial scene in this installment was the flooding of Jinshan Temple, but it couldn't be just a fighting spectacle. The characters' transformations and the eruption of emotion mattered more. So he let Su Xian watch Bai Suzhen come to his rescue in defiance of all danger, heedless of her own life. He let Su Xian recall every tender moment between them, until he finally conquered his terror of the snake Yao and chose to walk to his wife's side. His action made Lady Bai go from "rain is heartbroken," and "the wind sheds tears," to, just for these words, "heartbreak holds no." Woven through it all were content related to the modern Chinese meme: "Great Vajra Dragon," overturning rivers and seas, and 18 dragon-subduing palms, written with dazzling flair and spectacular verve. The moment Ding Songyin finished a page and set it aside to dry, Zioking snatched it up to read, one page after another. "Hurry up," Zioking urged with a nasal voice. Feeling that his sister on the other side of the screen had fallen soundly asleep, Ding Songyin finally dared speak aloud. He replied helplessly, "Miss Zioking, how can I possibly write as fast as you read?" Ever since Zioking had revealed her serpent tail, his form of address for her had quietly reverted to Miss and Miss Zioking. From Miss to heroine, then from heroine back to Miss. They had grown considerably closer. Zioking understood the situation too. She sniffled and said, "I just can't wait to find out what happens next. I'm afraid you'll hit me later." Ding Songyin shook his head inwardly and flicked his brush. With Yan Nanshan's initial aid and Zioking the Green Snake's desperate fighting, Bai Suzhen succeeded in carrying Su Xian out of Jinshan Temple. But she had been goaded by Fahai into flooding the area, harming innocents and violating the laws of heaven. In the end, the husband and wife were separated, and she was imprisoned forever beneath Leifeng Pagoda. After reading this final page, Zioking said nothing for a long time. Before she could speak, Ding Songyin took the initiative. The rest of the story goes roughly like this. Su Xian blames himself and retreats from the world to cultivate in a Taoist temple. Su Shilin, the reincarnation of the Wenk star, grows up under the care of his aunt and uncle. After getting into trouble repeatedly, he learns the truth of who his birth parents are and where they each can be found. He travels far, joins a top sect, masters powerful arts, and finally cleaves open Mount Hua, no Leifeng Pagoda. He frees Lady Bai, then goes to the temple to bring back Su Xian. At last, the family is reunited. As he improvised, Ding Songyin realized he was drifting toward the magic lotus lantern with its character, Chengxiang, splitting a mountain to save his mother. "Good, good, good," Zioking said, a slight catch in her voice. Once her emotions had stabilized, Ding Songyin decided to steer toward his real purpose. "Miss Zioking, my difficulty now is this: which sect should Su Shilin join? Which art should he cultivate so that it suited to defeating Fahai and breaking open Leifeng Pagoda?" He had previously established Su Shilin as a reincarnation of the Wenk star. First, it was because this world placed martial material above literary material, and common folk preferred tales of martial training. Second, it planted a seed for extracting information from Zioking later, giving himself a ready-made excuse. One thing led naturally to the next. Zioking dabbed at the corners of her eyes and looked at Ding Songyin, waiting for him to continue. Ding Songyin rambled on. "As you know, I've forgotten a great deal. My current understanding of the Jianghu is limited to the anecdotes and tales other storytellers tell. Beyond that, I know nothing." Then he showed his hand. "May I ask for your guidance?" "Oh." Zioking blinked in surprise, then straightened with delight, assuming the posture of a distinguished teacher. She hadn't expected that she could participate in the creative process or be giving Ding Songyan direction. Clearing her throat, she nodded slowly. "I know a thing or two about the Jianghu. The heaven-toppling waste martial arts come from Gonggong, who fought for the throne of celestial Thirch before the severing of heaven and earth. It's called the mountain-breaking heaven-toppling scripture. In ancient times, this art could shatter Mount Buzhu itself, let alone a mere pagoda reinforced by a formation array. Even in this age, it shouldn't be a problem once cultivated to a high level. Gonggong commands all waters, crushes 1,000 mountains, Lord of Wrath, shatters heaven and ruins earth, destroys law and order." Ding Songyan mulled it over and asked, "Where is this heaven-toppling way now?" "It's currently one of the upper 9 among the 21 heretical ways. Which exactly, I don't know," Zioking answered honestly. Ding Songyan tersely acknowledged. "That won't do, will it?" Su Shilin would be practicing heretical arts. Gonggong's lineage has good branches too. The water virtue annotation is one. Zioking also felt that Ding Songyan had a point, but had argued back before conceding. "Fine, try a different one. The 9 Heavens sect's record of primordial chaos heaven opening derives from Zhulong the Torch Dragon. Its fundamental method, the heaven opening skill, is more than enough to split apart Leifeng Pagoda." The Torch Dragon lineage. Heaven opening skill. Isn't that giving Leifeng Pagoda too much credit? Ding Songyan asked, curious, which nation is the 9 Heavens sect in? "New Yu." Zioking maintained her professorial bearing as a teacher. "That also won't work, will it?" Ding Songyan said hesitantly. "New Yu is practically an enemy nation. How can I have Su Shilin learning enemy martial arts?" Zioking was caught between annoyance and laughter. "Where do you get all these restrictions?" "They're not my restrictions. The audience won't like it." Ding Songyan put on a smile. "Most people listening to my stories are citizens of Great Zhao. I can't put them off." Zioking sighed with resignation. "Then the Xingshan clan's heaven-shattering precious record." "The Xingshan clan." Ding Songyan pointed at his own head. "Won't the appearance be too frightening? Su Shilin is supposed to be a handsome young man." Zioking couldn't help raising her eyes to the ceiling beams. Let me think. The Divine Empyrean Sect." The Divine Empyrean Sect that you people from Great Zhao can call your own. Whether it's the collection of heavenly punishment on heaven's behalf or the 9 palaces of Divine Empyrean, both have a fierce, overwhelming aspect capable of crushing mountains and destroying cities. At the appropriate realm, snapping Leifeng Pagoda in half wouldn't be too difficult. That's perfect. Ding Songyan stopped finding fault. This suited Su Shilin well. Moreover, the earlier part of the story had Lady Bai imprisoned beneath Leifeng Pagoda for violating the laws of heaven. If Su Shilin then cultivated the collection of heavenly punishment on heaven's behalf, the two mirrored each other perfectly. Crime and punishment, ordained from the start. Zioking smiled, then frowned slightly. "You absolutely cannot use the real names of these 2 arts when you tell the story. Otherwise, before you even finish this installment, you'll be sitting in the prefectural jail. You'll need to change them. So the orthodox sects only publicize the heretical paths, fundamental arts, while keeping their own secret." Ding Songyan thought for a moment, recalling a martial art from his previous life whose name was absurd enough that he couldn't fully reproduce it. "How about changing it too? The 9 heavens and 10 earths, even Bodhisattva's fear, thunderbolt lightning palm." "Drop the even Bodhisattva's fear. It's too undignified," Zioking critiqued. 9 heavens and 10 earths thunderbolt lightning palm is not bad. Ding Songyan took the opportunity to ask, "Miss Zioking, do you know anything about the Bright Knight sect? You want to write the Bright Knight sect into the story as the righteous faction, to curry favor with them." Zioking thought she had guessed his intentions. She reflected for a moment. "The Bright Knight sect's lineage descends from the 2 goddesses Bright Knight and Candlelight, each left behind a fundamental art. One is the Celestial Stars scripture, the other is the Candlelit Nocturne Sutra. Unfortunately, both lost the portions covering the final stage of the Dharma realm through to the Heaven Man realm. Don't mention these 2 fundamental arts directly either. What the Jianghu knows are the individual techniques derived from them, like the Waxing Moon Phantom Form, the Southern Dipper Calamity Averting Steps, the Northern Dipper Killing Sword, and the 7 Swords of Candlelit Night. Celestial Stars scripture Ding Songyin raised an eyebrow. Is there a celestial stars formation? The critical parts were lost long ago. The formation can't be assembled at all, Zioking answered offhandedly. Then she froze, looking at Ding Songyin with suspicion. How do you know about the celestial stars formation? The celestial stars scripture obviously corresponds to the full celestial sphere, and that sounds like it would naturally lend itself to a formation. Ding Songyin improvised an excuse on the spot. Zioking accepted this without suspicion, the golden hairpin atop her head bobbing. Currently, there's only a 7-man Northern Dipper sword formation and a 36-man Celestial Guardian sword formation. Ding Songyin badly wanted to ask whether the Bright Knight sect possessed a complete copy of the secret classic of mountains and seas, but the timing felt wrong. He was not supposed to know about the secret classic at this point. He suppressed the impulse and asked hesitantly, "What does the Bright Knight sect value most when accepting disciples?" Zioking glanced at him. "How would I know? Who would bother with such things?" "I would." Ding Songyin was faintly disappointed. Still, this line of inquiry was now out in the open. He could gather more from the Zhen household later. Zioking set the page in her hand back on the wooden chest and stood, waving with a full smile. "Ding Songyin, rest well. You'd better be in a good state for tomorrow's storytelling." And who was it that interrupted my rest? Ding Songyin turned and walked toward the door. "Where are you going?" Zioking, who was about to leave herself, asked curiously. Ding Songyin sighed. "It's sweltering in summer and stifling indoors. If I open the window, the mosquitoes swarm in. I was thinking of cooling off in the courtyard for a bit before sleeping." Between the heat and writing for so long, he was drenched in sweat. Oh. Zioking said helpfully with a smile. "Let me help you." She raised a hand and pressed it against Ding Songyin's shoulder. His vision went black as he felt his body shift. Then he was looking at his own courtyard wall and front door from the outside. "I think the stretch from your Chengyu Lane to Fengshui Bridge is both cool and pleasant. You should try it." Zioking appeared before him with her maidservant, pressed her palms together, and smiled. "We'll be going now." Ding Songyin looked at the tightly shut door and the rather high courtyard wall. "Miss Zioking, how am I supposed to get back inside to sleep?" Zioking blinked. For a moment she had no answer. Ding Songyin was about to speak again when the corner of his eye caught something. At the mouth of the lane, faint mist dissolved into the darkness, and within it, indistinct figures moving, some in ragged clothes, others in armor carrying blades. In a blink of an eye, all of it was gone.